Well,
I should put on eyes.
it is 8 o'clock, and I will call the special concurrent meeting to order. I will also ask my fellow Sparks and Reno mayors to call their meetings to order, but I will call this to order for the Washoe County Commission and the Truckee Meadows Fire District. I'll pass it over to you, Mayor Sheeby.
Oh, is that on?
It's There it is.
It's so hard to see. Okay, good morning. Can you hear me? Yeah. All right, good morning. I would like to call to order our concurrent meeting this morning with the City of Reno.
Thank you very much, Mayor Lawson.
And we'll call to order the concurrent meeting for the City of Sparks.
Thank you. And now I'll move to the Pledge of Allegiance, and I would like to ask Senator Skip Daly to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. We'll do roll call, and then before we begin public comment, we'll have Senator Skip Daly give us a few remarks. He needs to go down to Carson. He has a busy day. And then we'll move into comments from the chair and both mayors, and then we'll open public comment. So, Madam Clerk, if you could please give the roll call for Washoe County Commission.
Certainly. Alexis Hill, Chair.
Here.
Mike Clark.
Present.
Clara Andriola.
Present.
Mariluz Garcia.
Here.
Jean Herman is absent.
Thank
And
you.
our district attorney today is Nathan Edwards.
Thank you very much. And if you'll please give the roll call for the Truckee Meadows Fire District Board.
Of course.
Thank
Alexis
you.
Hill, Chair.
Here.
Mike Clark. Clara Andriola.
Present.
Mariluz Garcia. Here. Jean Herman is absent. And Interim Fire Chief Dale Way. And I neglected to mention Manager Brown is here for Washoe County. And I believe Mr. Edwards will represent Truckee Meadows as well.
Thank you very much. I will toss it over to Mayor Sheeby.
Okay, thank you so much. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll for the City of Reno?
Thank you. Councilmember Taylor?
Here.
Dorr?
Here.
Martinez?
Here.
Ebert?
Here.
Reese? Absent at this time. Anderson? Sheevy?
Here.
Madam Mayor, you do have a quorum.
All right, thank you so much.
And Mayor Lawson.
The roll call for the City of Sparks, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mayor Lawson,
Here.
Council members Abbott,
Here.
Vanderwell,
Here.
Anderson,
Here.
Bybee,
Here.
Rodriguez,
Here.
Assistant City Attorney Coberly, and City Manager Louthan. We have a quorum, thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we'll ask Senator Daly to please come up and give us some remarks, and then we'll move into mayor and chair remarks. Senator Daly.
There you go. I believe it's
What
on.
do you got to push?
There
There
you
it
go.
is. It's on. Perfect. Thank you, Commissioner Hill, Chair of the County Commission, Hillary Sheevy, Mayor of Reno, Ed Lawson, Mayor of Sparks, and the rest of the boards or councils and commission for having me here today. My name is Skip Daly, and I'm here in the official thing today, representing Senate District 13. And I want to thank Mayor Sheevy for helping put this together, and thank the county for hosting as we move forward on this. And when I first heard of the possibility that there could be some regionalization of the fire district, and that's the word we're trying to use rather than consolidation, I was interested in that. I talked to my friends, people that I know in the fire departments and various things, and they were not opposed, at least the ones I talked to in Reno and Sparks. And I hope Truckee Meadows is on board as well. We'll get there. So in order for the discussion after you guys work on this today to go forward, there has to be some legislation that enables a joint powers board to go forward, what you're authorized to do, what the timing of that is, some of the details on how you structure this or what the administration's going to be is going to be left to the Joint Powers Board, wouldn't be in the legislation. So I have put in a bill draft request to start that process. So that's already done. The only thing I need now is to get details on what that bill is going to look like, what provisions are going to be in there. So after you guys have your discussion today, I'm going to be following up to try to get some of those details and put it forward. Nothing is cast in stone at this point. It's open on how we want to try to structure that. It's open on what the funding process will be. We'll have those discussions. We'll put as much into the legislation as possible so we have a strong outline and framework, but then leaving as much as we can to the joint powers and the local governments on the details of how and when that's going to get stood up. So there's a lot of questions. And then whatever does get put into the bill draft when it first comes out, you have the committee processes, you have the discussions, you have hearings. So even then, it's not cast in stone, and we're going to try to get as much people or as much collaboration and agreement to go forward as possible. And these three governing bodies are the ones that are going to be in control. You're going to make it work or not make it work. So for the public and for your public bodies, I would kind of say this. I know I'd always tell people that, hey, look to your experts. You have some of the people that you can rely on when you're looking for something, and you shouldn't be the person that's saying, yeah, but. They're the experts. You don't know more about it than they do, so you should be listening to them sometimes. So I'm going to do a reverse on the yeah, but part for all of the people that say, or when you guys are having your discussions and you're saying, well, we can't this, we can't that. The goal here is to, and I would say, yeah, but won't this actually improve response times? You say, well, we can't do this, or there's a problem here, another hurdle in the road. Yeah, but won't it improve fire readiness? Won't it hopefully have some cost savings and efficiencies and effectiveness? Won't it improve our preparedness for wildfire interface areas? All of those things are true. That's the goal that we're having. Keep an eye on the goal. Focus on trying to improve those services, reduce costs, increase preparedness, all of the things that we hope we can accomplish by moving forward with the regionalization. And then how we structure that and pay for it and everything is still, I'm looking for some input from you guys. I got a few ideas, but I'm not the only one that is going to decide that, right? We still have to get it past 63 legislators and the governor. So we need to make sure that we're in agreement, and if we can get all three of these governing bodies together on that, and just remember, yeah, but this is going to improve the services that we provide to our citizens in Washoe County. And that's the goal, remember that, and that's all I got, unless you got a question. But like I say, it's in state of flux. We're looking for you guys to give me some more information so we can get a bill draft, and we'll continue the discussions all the way through. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Senator Daley. We really appreciate you bringing us together. Just a few remarks before I throw it over to both of the mayors and give them an opportunity to speak before the meeting. We kick off that public comment. And I just want to thank everyone for being here. I welcome Reno and Sparks to our chambers. We have a history of collaboration, all of us. And so I'm really looking forward to continuing those discussions and seeing how we can continue to work together. We have grown a lot as a region, and I think Senator Daley really said it well when there are new ways to look at things, and we don't necessarily need to live in a 2012 era, if you will. We can look at things in 2025 and find opportunities for innovation and look at things in a new way. And I think that my board, we want to focus on service. We're really proud of Truckee Meadows Fire, but we have been so blessed to work with Reno and Sparks because you also have incredible fire services and chiefs as well. And I just want to thank Senator Daley for bringing us together and pushing this region to always looking at public safety first And I'm all about making policy on really good data. And so I think that there's an opportunity for this board to bring people together and find great data. And I think that there are tools available today that we can use, that we're going to hear from our chiefs on, to move these regional discussions forward. So really looking forward to the discussion. And Mayor Sheeby, I'll throw it over to you. You've also been pushing for this meeting to happen.
Okay, thank you so much. I appreciate it. And thank you so much for your generosity for hosting us. It's very kind of you. So many thoughts and so many ideas and so many things going on in my head, but I just want to thank all of you for being here, because I know how difficult our schedules are. This is a miracle, actually, to have everyone in this room at the same time. So I appreciate your cooperation more than you know. One of the things is I have constant meetings when it comes to our fire department and what that looks like, and especially as we head into fire season, we have been constantly talking about what it looks like, and not to mention, I think, coming off of the Davis fire and then seeing what happened in LA, and ironically, we had a meeting scheduled we scheduled it on a Monday, and then that meeting was on the following Monday, and during that time, the LA fire broke out. So I think that was like on a Wednesday going into the weekend. And so we were talking about having a regional meeting. What does it look like? How can we collaborate better together? And to your point, the region has changed dramatically in size, population, terrain, weather. There are so many things to consider. And so I think it's a great opportunity to come together, collaborate, and see what it looks like. But there were things that happened in the LA fire that we should also be asking to make sure that our region is the safest that it could possibly be. I think all of us would assume that when you turn on a fire hose, there will be adequate water. And so we cannot assume that. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to have this meeting, because it started to leave me and a lot of community members reaching out to my office with many questions, and I didn't have some of those answers. And I'm sure many of you didn't either. And so I also think there are challenges that we learn from every event. And some of those challenges, too, particularly that I saw in the Davis fire, was there was some communication issues. And part of that happened from a lot of those communication towers, I'm talking about television and radio and things like that, were greatly impacted, right? So these are the types of things we need to talk about. We also need to talk about, we saw in the Davis fire that they had to shut off power. I don't know how many people were particularly prepared. So these are the things that we need to talk about, especially when you're turning off power. What does that look like to our elderly residents that are on, oxygen tanks? Or what if you hadn't charged your phone, or certain things like this, right? And so these are things that we have to talk about. We've got to be transparent. We got to do this together, because now more than ever, our region depends on it. We cannot be siloed. We cannot be bound by boundaries. It is just not going to be adequate service anymore. It is dangerous, and I think all of us coming together and addressing this is not a popular topic by any means, but it's something that we all have to face, and we have to be very realistic and honest with each other and have these honest conversations. So I want to say thank you so much, Senator Daley. I appreciate you more than you know, wanting to tackle these tough issues, because they are difficult. But I can't live with myself if we don't move forward and be transparent about what this looks like in a region together. And, particularly if you've ever had anyone lost a loved one or lost your home in a fire, Hannah Hubier is right here. And it's absolutely devastating, beyond devastating. No one in this community should ever face that. So I want to say thank you to all of you. Many of you in this room today have been leaders in this space, and I think we are working better together. None of us were here whenever some of those decisions were made previously, and so we all have the opportunity to work together, and I'm very, very grateful. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Mayor Lawson.
Well, I think now is the perfect time. And for me, I'm looking at it as an innovation. How do we provide better service to our public? How do we provide faster response time? All those things will be incorporated in this discussion. How we set it all up, how it's governed, and of course, the funding source that Senator Daley's graciously agreed to take to slings and arrows, which is not a very popular subject down at the legislature. But I'm glad that you're doing it. It's time that we take a hard look at this. We're 100% behind the journey to make this happen. I want to caution and not set expectations. We are not going to solve this problem today. I just want you to know that right away. What we're really solving today is, are we going to pursue a different way of providing fire service? And that's really the question that we need to ask ourselves. If that is the case, then all the other questions happen. Then we start to see some form and function of how it all works. But I will also, to tag on with Senator Daley, is don't give me the yeah buts. Give me solutions. Give me ideas. Even if it's a horrible idea, it's an idea. Just give me something that makes sense, that provides a better service for our community.
Thank you very much. Now, I look to Madam Clerk to please open public comment for Truckee Meadows Fire District and also for the Washoe County Commissioners. But then I would like to ask Madam Mayor if you agree to open public comment for the City of Reno. I'm getting a yes. And Mayor Lawson, yes. Okay, for the City of Sparks. Madam Clerk.
Okay, collectively for all four boards, first up we have Mark Newman.
Good morning, Commissioners, Councilmen from Reno and Sparks. Appreciate all of you showing up. Hope you're having a good day. My idea is both City of Reno, City of Sparks, and Washoe County, and plus every county in the state of Nevada and city are having financial problems. We're running off an old tax basis that was written years and years and years
Ask
ago.
Madam Mayor
But somebody
if
can
you
move
agree to
into
open
your
public
area
comment
there
for
in
the City of
Reno,
I'm getting a
pay
yes.
for a remodel house that was built
Mayor
in the
Lawson,
1950s
yes.
and
Okay,
paid
for the City of
$1.5
Sparks.
million.
Madam Clerk.
I buy a house in
Collectively for all four boards.
unincorporated Washoe
First up
County
we have Mark
in
Newman.
1997, but I'm paying twice as much property tax as that person that paid $1.5 million, and I paid $150,000. Got to do something different with the tax plan, because you're all hurting, every one of you. Reno, Sparks, Washoe County, and every other county in the state of Nevada.
Idea is-
Unless something's done at the state of Nevada level, Mr. Daley would be one of the people that would be needed to talk to, we're always going to have this problem. Consolidating the fire departments. I've lived in Reno, in the state of Nevada, Reno, Sparks, Washoe County, since 1962. At one time, our fire departments were all consolidated together. We was one just fire department. There was inter-department arguments. It got split up. Now we're having problems, and we're talking about bringing it back together again. Down the road, when the next group of council people and commissioners come in, the fire department, are we going to go through the same problem again? We need to fix the problem and make it permanent, so we don't have to keep going through this with everybody. And we need to fix our tax tables to where it makes a fair property tax for everybody, not just someone. Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Next up we have Hannah Hobiar.
Good morning, everybody. Those who don't know me, my name is Hannah Hubiar. I lost my house in the Davis fire. We were the second house to go up. We were south of the Chocolate Nugget. There was a lot of communication issues, and had that been not an issue with Truckee Meadows, because that's who is out there, we probably would have been able to save a little bit more and get out. We were constantly told that we did not have to evacuate, even though we saw the fire coming directly towards us. However, in that area, we lived right where the barrier is, so on Old 395, so if you leave, then you're leaving until you're told you can go back. Oftentimes out there, that can be for days, and they just don't let you back out there. And there was a lot of issues. I mean, we kept asking if we needed to evacuate. They kept saying no. 911 operators kept saying, no, you didn't need to leave. It was fine. Didn't look fine, but out there, you don't know what's going on. We did go see the smoke. before the fire department got there. There was one truck that made it there right when we were looking at it. And we had about 5 minutes to go from the time that we were told that we needed to leave. We found out, unfortunately, by a fire department posting our house as their cover photo on Facebook. That was a really nice street to find out. And you know, I don't wish anybody losing their house in a wildfire. It sucks. It's terrible. There is not a lot of help that you can get, even though there are a lot of people who say they will help you. We have been very lucky that the individuals in Reno have been extremely helpful, and if it weren't for them, we would probably be on the street right now. But I just ask, you know, in this meeting, just to, you know, work on the communication issues as, you know, the mayor talked about that this was an issue. There were a lot of communication issues, and had, you know, that not been something that was going on, we probably would have been able to get a little bit more, and we would not have been in the situation that we were. Also, something else to talk about is the people who go and take pictures, and because they want to, you know, post it on social media of an active fire that they're not involved in. There was a lot of traffic. We did not get to leave, like, our property was on fire. We pulled out of our driveway and we were stuck in our driveway because there were people driving the wrong way on the road taking pictures of the fire burning for some fascinating reason. I'm sure they'd have reason behind it. So that's just kind of what I ask you. If you guys have any questions, most of you know how to get a hold of me. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hubar, and I'm so sorry for your loss.
Next up, we have Olivia Tanager.
Good morning. Olivia Tanager on behalf of the Sierra Club Toyabe chapter. For the record, it's good to see all of you this morning. I won't take too much of your time because I know you have very important things to discuss, but I did want to take this opportunity to briefly talk about some of the things that I think is going to start really negatively impacting our region if the collective boards don't take a very long and serious look at it. So over the past 2 months, we've been dealing in the city of Reno with data centers for the first time. The Planning Commission is trying to figure out how to deal with data centers for the first time. There was a data center project that my organization appealed, unfortunately unsuccessfully, but as of yet, there have not been a series of ordinances that we feel adequately address data centers. While we're on the topic of fire, there have been data center fires, and that's one of many things that we think should be considered in creating local policy pertaining to data centers. But one of our biggest concerns is the increased utility costs that we expect to come that are associated with data centers. They're going to require a huge amount of infrastructure to be built out because the energy demand is so high, and ratepayers are going to be on the hook for having to pay for that. Secondarily, we're really concerned about the economic impact or lack thereof of data centers. At the state level, there's a 75% property tax abatement for data centers, and the sales tax abatement is reduced down to 2%. So we've had some data centers coming before different bodies saying that they're going to generate a lot of tax revenue, and that's not entirely the case because a lot of that tax revenue is abated. And so I know that you all are dealing with some pretty serious budget deficits. We're dealing with some budget issues at the state level, and I would encourage you all to consider the economic impact or the lack of economic impact associated with this industry, and to create ordinances and policies that are forward-thinking and make sure that we're doing what is best and what is safest for the residents of Northern Nevada. And consider the heavy energy usage and where that energy is coming from. And certainly there are projects that are very water intensive as well. We've talked about water a lot. It's an issue all across the state of Nevada. And so we need to be really forward thinking and critically thinking about the way in which we're going about bringing data centers to Washoe, to Sparks, to the city of Reno. And I would encourage you all to think about what policies we can do in 2025 that would allow us to do it safely and would allow us to do it with all the citizens of Washoe, Sparks, and Reno in mind. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next up, we have Kathy Fulkerson.
Good morning, commissioners, city council members, fire board members. I'm thrilled to see you here all in collaboration for emergency management. It's so important to have a regional perspective on things to tackle it together and to bring all thinking minds to solve the problems. I'm here to talk additionally about data centers. I'm the facilitator of Third Act Nevada. It's a national organization empowering seniors to protect the planet. And we are also concerned about data centers. One of the data centers that was approved, the Webb Data Center in northern Reno, will demand annually 30 megawatts of power. That's equivalent to all the power generated by the Steamboat Geothermal Energy Station. And so just to power that one data center, the infrastructure needed to build out energy and operate, design, plan, and then deliver, and 2 data centers falls on Nevada ratepayers. So Nevada ratepayers will pay for all that infrastructure to support these buildings, which are use huge amounts of energy and huge amounts of water to cool them. One person has called them thermal dissipation centers because they require so much energy or water to provide the cooling systems. So I'm just here to encourage you to think about it, to come up with a regional approach if possible, but to tie them to the master plan and sustainability measures so that all of Nevadans can benefit from this project. Thank you very much for your service to the community.
Thank you.
William T. Stewart.
Good morning. How's everybody doing today? Thank you for your service, and thank you for doing all you can. William T. Stewart for the record. One of the things that I've talked to numerous times at this dais, as well as the city of Reno, Sparks, and Washoe County, is public safety. And that's something you guys are talking about today. What happened to our JFAB, the Joint Fire Advisory Board? That's something we had years ago. I don't know why that went away. That's something you can do to implement and bring back to the board and the citizens and the people sitting behind me that are putting their lives on the day, each and every day. Washoe County is growing. Last estimates were over almost 500,000 or 500,000 people. Calls for service will continue to grow. We need people to get to those calls as soon as possible. We need to have a plan in place that makes sense, that's fiscally responsible, and that puts the public first. We have to do these things because public safety is what government is founded on. You don't normally have government and efficiency in the same sentence. That's what we have to do. We need to be more efficient. We have AVL on our trucks now. We have paramedics in most of our fire stations. We've got to continue to make sure we keep rising the bar for our public safety and also for the citizens that you guys represent. I have so many things to say. I rushed down here, and I'm glad I made it under public comment. All the studies we've done, the Blue Ribbon Committee, I mean, who's looked at that? There's all kinds of things we can do each and every day to make sure the public's safe. The fires in LA are a huge wake-up call. How many times do we have to learn from the mistakes that have been done in the past? Defensible space, proper planning, ingress and egress. When we build communities, we've got to make sure that we have multiple ways to get out because the fire truck's coming into a one-way road, you're going to bottleneck. And what's going to happen? That's when you're going to have people die on the road. Campfire, car fire. How many fires do we have to go down the road to make sure that we can't do this again? And then we talk about the money. Think about the money that's lost. Think about all those people in LA that have to rebuild. They're going to be out of their homes for a number of years, and then when they do get the chance to rebuild, they're going to have to probably, well, insurance is a whole nother thing. The insurance is not covering what those homes were built for. So that's another thing. The insurance is a big problem. I'm working with all kinds of people throughout the region so far as insurance, defensible space, home hardening, all these things play together because what funds the people sitting behind me is our property values and our property taxes. How are we going to do that if we lose 200, 300, 400, thousands of homes like they did in LA? What's going to happen to the real estate market? It's going to tank. All these things we have to take into consideration. So these are big questions that hopefully you guys can find answers to. I'm more than happy to help. please continue to make sure you have these dialogues, you get the public involved, you make sure everybody's at the table, and you find solutions to a problem that we can fix. Thank you for your time. God bless.
Thank you.
There's nobody else signed in.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. We now will move to approval of the agenda. I am looking for a motion to approve from the Washoe County Commission.
So moved.
Thank you, Commissioner Garcia, and a second from Commissioner Andriola. Any questions on that motion from the board? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, please say nay. That motion passes unanimously. I'd like a motion to approve the agenda from the Truckee Meadows Fire District Board.
moved.
Thank you, Commissioner Garcia. Looking for a second.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Andriola. Any questions on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, please say nay. That motion also counts unanimously. I will now move to Mayor Sheeby.
All right, thank you so much. At this time, I'd like to ask City of Reno to give me a motion to approve.
Yeah, motion to approve the agenda?
All right, thank you, Councilwoman. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries unanimously.
Thank you, Mayor Lawson.
I'm looking for approval of the agenda.
Move to approve the agenda.
I'll second that motion.
Got a motion by Vanderwell, second by Abbott. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries unanimously.
Thank you very much. We'll now move into our business items, and I am looking to open up item B1 for both the Washoe County Commission and the Truckee Meadows Fire District. I will read that into the record, and I will ask both mayors if they would like to open it up for their boards. B1, supplemental supporting materials, presentation and discussion on the collaborative regional emergency management process, including strategic goals, community lifelines, and updates on ongoing efforts related to emergency preparedness and response plans. This is for discussion only, so we will not be opening up public comment on this. And I look to Madam Mayor.
All right.
Would you like to open that item?
Yes, I'm not going to get into it. You just don't want to repeat you.
Okay,
myself.
cool.
Item B1.
Thank
yes.
you. Thank you. And Mayor Lawson.
Looking to open item B1.
Thank you very much. And now I look to our staff to see who would like to present on item B1 and begin. It looks like Ms. Echeverria is coming up.
Good morning. My name is Kelly Echeverria. I'm the Washoe County Emergency Management Administrator.
And good morning, Andy Angelo, with the City of Reno.
All right. We're here to talk to you about emergency management, hopefully share some of our passion and knowledge about it with you. So thank you for having us. We are a twice accredited emergency management agency. For us, that is a really big deal. It says that we are doing what we say we'll do, and we're doing it at the level, the highest level recognized nationally. At the time of our accreditation in 2020, we were one of 32 counties that have been twice accredited. Not a lot, given how many are in Texas alone. So we're going for our third accreditation January 2026, and have no doubt that we'll get there together. We operate out of the Emergency Operations Center, the Regional Emergency Operations Center. Myself and my staff work out of there daily, but it is all of our Emergency Operations Center for any incident that may occur. It is open to any jurisdiction to use Reno, Sparks, Washoe, Indian Colonies, Pyramid Lake Paiute Tribe. It's a space that we share. This is my team that I feel I need to mention. They support all of our programs regionally and some statewide. We have Jessica Adams-Lopes in Homeland Security, Sabrina Braswell in Mitigation, and Francisco Ceballos over Grants, Finance, and our local emergency planning committee. We have 13 hazards in our region, confirmed by the hazard mitigation plan that we're going through right now, and I'll talk about later. But these are our 13 identified hazards that we look at in all aspects of emergency management. We take all of these into account in every single thing that we do. So looking at, the more frequent ones like wildland fire, which we've heard about today, flood, but more impactful ones too, like earthquake and even volcano. There are 5 primary mission areas. This is what we call them in emergency management. You'll hear throughout this presentation that We organize in very strategic ways, and that's to make sure that we're not missing anything and that we're doing everything we need to do to support our communities. So those 5 mission areas are prevention, so stopping something from happening, primarily law enforcement related, preparedness, which we've heard about today from the mayor, response, recovery, and mitigation. And now I'm going to get a little nerdy for a second, but just to explain to you, across those 5 mission areas, which you see at the top in blue, there are 32 core capabilities outlined by FEMA. These are distinct preparedness elements that help guide our response activities. Even when we are training and exercising, these are the things that we're testing to find our gaps. So there's a lot. Some of them cross all mission areas, and some of them are specifically in one mission area. And then these are our partners. I purposely made this slide incredibly busy because we have a lot of partners. And we do the things that we do in emergency management across those mission areas with all of these partners together at the table. It takes a whole of community to do emergency management for all the hazards that I mentioned earlier. So if I could, a lot of these partners are here today. I just ask that you stand up so we can recognize your efforts and thank you for your partnership. If you can't talk, it's okay. So again, thank you so much for everything you do every day that might not necessarily get recognized or seen by the public. We couldn't do what we do in emergency management, especially in disasters, without that everyday work from all of you. So I appreciate you. Now, the partners that you saw on that last slide come from these community lifelines and some outside of. But these lifelines are 8 vital services that help all other aspects of our society function. So the 8 are at the top in the circles, and then underneath each one, you'll see things like fire services, law enforcement. Thank you so much. Dispatch, transportation, maybe not maritime for us, but this is a FEMA thing. You'll see in the right-hand side colored circles related to water. Those colors designate how are we doing. So this tool also allows us to better track disruption and prioritize stabilization during an incident, allows us to better communicate with the public about the status of any one of these 8 lifelines and with all of you in a standardized way that you're all getting the same information and can better digest what is going on within the community that you're responsible for. We're doing a little bit more partners. Thank you so much. As if all of our partners here were not enough. Transportation, and that is across state lines. So we're working with our local partners around Lake Tahoe and further up the border as well to make sure that we're planning training together. We understand how each of us is responding. We train together. It's not, disasters recognize jurisdictional boundaries, right? They go across state lines, and so that partnership is extremely important to us. We support the partnership between Cal OES and Nevada DEM and amongst Nevada counties and local jurisdictions as well. We have our Nevada Emergency Preparedness Association conference next week where all of these partners will be coming together. And then I would be remiss if I didn't mention the Critical Infrastructure Security Administration, or CISA, that works with partners in every jurisdiction to assess vulnerabilities with our critical infrastructure. So I talked a little bit about strategy earlier, but we do this annually. So we have a 5-year strategic plan just for emergency management, where we look at our gaps in the region and we prioritize our goals. So here are the 6 goals that we've been working on since 2020 and through this year, at which time we'll reassess our gaps, what we've been able to accomplish, and come up with new goals for another 5-year plan starting next year. But strengthen the Homeland Security program. This program really started in 2020 when we brought Jessica Adams on board in our office. We were doing some Homeland Security initiatives prior to that, like a statewide continuity of operations program. But Jessica has really turned various projects into a program that supports our community. So we're lucky to have her building that. We created a coordinated approach to increasing a culture of preparedness. Now, this was a little bit sidelined during the pandemic because we weren't able to go out and speak to the public directly. It was more virtual messaging, which we saw an impact of that once we were able to go and talk to people again. A lot of where have you been? And we just emphasize that we're glad to be back out there again and building that back up with our communities. We facilitate regional recovery resources, connecting volunteer organizations active in disaster with those who need the resources that are available. Can we provide all of the resources? Maybe sometimes no, but we will try with everything that we have available from our partners to connect those partners with the needs of our community. Encourage mitigation strategies. I'll get into that one a little bit more later, but we are building a mitigation program that we're all very proud of. And then coordinating regional responding resources. We've done that pretty frequently over the past few years, and we'll continue to do that. And again, I'll talk about that more as we go through. And then meet our annual accreditation requirements. So we do all of those things through planning, operations, equipment, training, and exercise, or POETI. If you're familiar with emergency management, we love our acronyms. So this is one that really guides us. What can we do to fill the gaps that we've identified? These are the ways that we do that. Do we plan? Are operations sufficient? Do we have enough equipment? What trainings do we have going on? And then can we do an exercise to test the plans that we've created? So we also do a regional integrated preparedness plan and a workshop annually to update this plan, where again, we look at those gaps across the 32 core capabilities. It's something that we are ongoing tracking. And so we're able to follow up with who an individual task is assigned to, what progress has been made, how can we close that gap through that POETI model that I just described. And we do this in building out our 3-year plan of when we're going to do training so that we don't schedule them on the same day, so that we make sure as a community that we're addressing these things together because we can't do it alone. So I'll talk about a little bit the FEMA preparedness cycle. You see on the outside, it says plan, organize, equip, train, exercise, evaluate, and do it all over again. This helps us prioritize, like I said, those gaps. So that's just everything I described, but in a wheel. And it really ties into this wheel. So this is our exercise program, where we design an exercise to test a plan. We conduct it, we evaluate ourselves, and we try to do better. And we try to close those gaps. And we do that when we're not in the time of a disaster, so that when that time does come, it's not new to us, and we're able to act quickly and efficiently for the safety of our community. So there they are together. And these are our priorities that we identified in that integrated preparedness plan. Operational coordination, which is how we work together. Communication, how we talk, how we share information. Mass care services, so that's from providing a temporary evacuation point to a full-blown shelter. How are we feeding? How are we taking care of pets, livestock? Reunification, all of that is in mass care services. Community resilience, how can we support our community so that when a disaster does happen, we've lessened or eliminated the impact of that incident? And then fatality management, which I think is self-explanatory. And then again, this is how we get there. So I apologize for the busyness of these slides, but it really is that POETI model that I talked about and what we are specifically doing in each one of those priorities. So operational coordination. As I roll through these, you'll see some of them are redundant because they fit in multiple categories, the things that we're doing. But there are differences. So in planning, we're updating our regional emergency operations plan right now. We're working on policy group communication, standard operating procedures, so that all of you know what we're doing. It's not a question mark, and you know how to communicate with us. We would like to do an evacuation study. And then we're building an events operations center, which you see under organization equipment, training, exercises, working with the airport. We're training our special events exercises as well. We do the Great Shakeout annually, and we'll be supporting Northern Nevada Public Health exercise this year as well. So that's just operational coordination. As you roll through each one of these, you'll see there are some minor differences. I won't read it all to you. And there certainly could have been more, but this is not an eye test, it's a presentation, so I'll spare you. But if you'd like to talk more about any one of those things, myself, Chief Ancho, and Chief Means from the City of Sparks would be happy to talk to you about any of that. We also focus on preparedness. Like I mentioned earlier, we do community tabling at events. We present at community advisory boards and neighborhood associations. We created an evacuation video that is multi-language, so it's English, Spanish, and American Sign Language. We have proclamations, usually for Preparedness Month with all of you. We are constantly doing media messaging, working on personal preparedness focus. City of Sparks did a Go Bags for Seniors that the county was able to support, and then community forums as well. And you'll see this picture is the City of Sparks Senior Go Bags program, which brought together multiple partners. So response. This is just a typical flow of events and very high level. So if an incident occurs and a threat to the population is determined, a request for an evacuation alert is sent to emergency management. Emergency management confirms that the evacuation site is safe. So in the instance of Davis Fire, for example, we were in communication with Incident Command and said, okay, South Valley's library is going to be our temporary evacuation point. Does that work for you? Is it outside of the threat? And the answer was yes, initially. It did get moved later. But we will activate the Emergency Shelter Council, who then supports that operation, and the alert is sent. Now, this process used to be much more arduous. It was, I'm going to send, when I started in this region with the Red Cross, I had a pager. So I would receive a page. We would call a conference line. We would find a location that was confirmed to be open, and then we would all agree upon that location and then stand that up, and then the alert was sent minutes later. So this process that we have now, we're able to make decisions that much quicker. Temporary evacuation points at libraries is an easy and quick decision. Libraries are already places of information and comfort for our communities, and we have the keys, so that helps. But then we also built out a catalog of places for shelters, bulk distribution, mass migration sites, RV sites, green sites that we could put a tent if we needed to, so that we know ahead of time and we're not scanning through a book. We can easily look at a map, they're color coordinated, and pick a location for whatever the need might be. So I mentioned that we send alerts. The type of information included in those alerts is the threat, the area being evacuated, where to go, and how to find information. We've utilized Perimeter Map, which I'll talk a little bit more about, but you can see on that map where you are in relation to an evacuation zone. And that's something we thought was very important for our region, given how many visitors we have. So we used to explain, if you live between Street A and B and Road 1 and 2, evacuate now. Well, you might not know if you're between those, and taking the time to figure that out is precious minutes that you've now lost. So it's an application for first responders, but this website for the public helps cut down on that time frame and that confusion. We've also changed our alerting tool to Rave Smart 911. We did this because we wanted to find a way to communicate with our partners or our community members who have access and functional needs. And we wanted to give them extra time that they might need to evacuate. So if I draw a polygon on a map and I'm sending the alert to a certain area, and there's a person who lives outside of that polygon but has access and functional needs, they will still receive the alert. And they'll know that they can take the time to leave early. That's something we've been looking for a decade. We found it, we implemented it last year. We send it out through every technological means available to us. And I say that because I get a lot of what-if questions. If I could invent another way to communicate, I would certainly be a lot richer, but I don't have that capability. So we use emergency alert system, which is the wah-wah that you hear on radio and TV. wireless emergency alerts, which come to your cell phone, social media, email, text, voicemail, and we do this in multiple languages. So I mentioned perimeter, something we're very proud of, something initially brought to us from one of our fire partners and implemented in 2023 for Washoe County, Carson City, Douglas County, and Story County using Homeland Security funds. The idea was that we are the partners that border the lake and have TRIC. And so we were going to pilot this program and see if it worked, and it was successful. So this year we'll be adding on Pershing, Elko, Humboldt, Lyon, and Nye County as well. So it allows, I mentioned that it's an application for first responders. It allows us to share kind of behind the scenes information on whatever situation is developing. So that we're able to then vet that information before it's pushed to the public. Is this accurate? Can we add more information to what's happening? If you have ever been in the midst of a fire, it's chaotic. And so adding detailed information is very difficult, but emergency management is able to take the information from our partners and put it into perimeter in a confirmed and digestible way, and then share it to the public fairly quickly. We're using it right now. There are sandbag locations on there because we have a storm today. It's very low bandwidth. It's able to be viewed as a website address. We can push it out in our alert notifications. We have it in social media, and it can also be embedded in GIS tools. Emergency management also has operational responsibilities. So our primary two are communication, resource support, but then we're responsible for mass care operations as well. So coordinating the partners in our emergency shelter council. We're responsible for our reunification partners as well. So if there was a transportation incident with an airline where we had to reunify family members, that Family Assistance Center would be run through emergency management. Volunteer and donations management and damage assessment and notification all happens through the Emergency Operations Center as well. So recovery. I led with challenges because these are the things that are going to dictate recovery, and it's not always the same. You've been through one recovery, you've been through one recovery, but there are some common themes. So what is the size and scope of the incident? Obviously, COVID recovery looked a lot different than a fire recovery, looks a lot different than a hurricane recovery. There's short-term recovery, and then there's long-term. Housing is always an issue. Oftentimes, lower economic areas are more adversely impacted. And so then what is the long-term housing solution for that? All of us remember 2017 floods. We were trying to house individuals in the short term and look at long-term situations, but we looked at, are there long-term stay hotels near where they live? Because that's something that we want to keep in mind. We want to keep them in their community, and there weren't. And so that was the scope of the incident. Obviously, COVID recovery looked a lot. What's the economic loss? Something emergency management, I think, is good at, or at least we think we are, is looking at what are the end impacts and working our way back to a solution. So what are the economic impacts and how do we mitigate that moving forward? It's not just what are the physical impacts, what are the impacts we can't see as well? And then what does that new normal look like? These are all things that we have to think about when we go through recovery. All right, so our mitigation plan and program. I mentioned that this plan is with the state for approval right now. It's something I think we should all be incredibly proud of. Our partners in this plan primarily were City of Reno, City of Sparks, Washoe County, North Lake Tahoe Fire Protection District, Truckee Meadows Fire Protection District, TRFMA, the Indian Colony, Pyramid Lake Paiute Tribe, and then all of the subject matter experts that could surround any one of those 13 hazards. And this was a very big lift. I'm incredibly proud of what we did over the past year for this plan. I expect no issues with the state. Once the state approves it, it'll go to FEMA for approval as well. One of the things that we did different with this plan this go around was we have action items identified to mitigate those 13 hazards, the impacts. There's a lot. We also identified funding sources for each of those action items so that we're not wasting time applying for grants that it may not be an allowable expense. So when that goes to FEMA and they approve it, they're saying, yes, we agree with you and we agree with your funding sources. So in the future, we're more efficient in the resources we go after to bring these actions to fruition. So again, those are the 13 hazards. As you can imagine, there's a lot of actions surrounding those, some of which have already been put into place. You see the bridge on the left? It wasn't just for aesthetics. It did a lot to reduce flooding along the river corridor. I love that bridge. It's so beautiful, but I also love that it doesn't flood there anymore. We no longer have to have a crane on top picking debris out of the river. We also have the seismic retrograde that happened at City Hall. We have some bollards on the right. If you think to recent events over New Year's where we had a vehicle versus a crowd incident, that's what these bollards are designed to prevent. And then we've also recently been approved for avalanche signage, educational signage in our trouble areas up in Incline. We have the only urban avalanche areas around the lake. And so we want to do what we can to inform the public so they can make decisions about their safety, not trigger an avalanche that may hit infrastructure or homes. Fuels mitigation. We love those goats. There's the chipping that happens, there's green waste days. NV Energy certainly has a phenomenal program where they're tying in with our fire departments for fuels mitigation around their infrastructure. There are many more pictures that I could speak to, but I defer to the fire department to brag about their capabilities related to fuels mitigation, but it is out there, and we are trying to map it. So we created something called the Dashboard of Regional Agencies that lives on our website. And one of those tabs on the dashboard is fuels mitigation. And we're still working to bring in as much information as possible, but you can see the efforts that have happened around the region from various agencies to make sure that, you know, we're doing what we can to try to prevent something horrible from happening. And then I mentioned a program. So Sabrina Braswell has come on as our mitigation program coordinator and done a phenomenal job. She's built a map where we can see by jurisdiction who's responsible for what action item from our mitigation plan. What hazard is it associated with? And it's a portal for our partners to go into, and we can say, hey, how are you doing with this? What are the hurdles to bringing this project through to fruition? What resources can we connect you with? It used to be that every 5 years when we update the plan, we'd say, hey, how'd it go? And that's not a program. So we wanted to keep our pulse on all of our mitigation projects so that we can try to make those happen, to build a resiliency within our community, to prevent or lessen the impacts of a disaster. We have some additional efforts. The road to resilience is something that we're super proud of. So this is a lot of the things that I've already mentioned, but it was in this program that we've implemented them, starting with perimeter map. We also did a full-scale evacuation exercise up in Incline Village, including our partners from the Valley, from across the state line, from both states. And then we did a community forum in Incline Village to share the results of that exercise. It was the biggest exercise that we had done in years. 2024, we created the Tahoe Emergency Managers Working Group. That was something that came out of Caldor Fire, was a lack of partnership across state lines and a recognition that disasters don't recognize or stop at jurisdictional boundaries. And so now we meet quarterly and we share our plans and we share training. Our roads crews have trained with Placer County on what to do in the incident of avalanche. They have beacons now, equipment. That's just one example of what that group's been able to do. We started an event operations group. This is something we stole from South by Southwest, or use best practices. But we've looked and worked with Clark County as well. We stood this up for the first time for Red, White, and Tahoe Blue. It has representatives of first responders, our dispatch agencies, emergency management, all in a room during an event. So a mini EOC, if you will. We're postured to be able to respond or to head off minor incidents before they become big incidents. We can communicate with the public that much faster should something happen at something like this. So we also stood this up for Great Reno balloon races. We're working with Burning Man on this as well. We'll be going down to South by Southwest and seeing how their Events Operations Center actually stands up and what we can use from a large-scale event like that to support our region during Burning Man. We launched the multi-language evacuation video, which really sets expectations for the public on what they might see or feel during an evacuation. We launched the dashboard of regional agencies, which has perimeter. We're working to bring in our alerts so that they're right next to the perimeter map. And our incidents before they become weather, fuels mitigation, as I mentioned before. And then emergency alerts, where we switched to that new system in September of last year. We're working with and then in 2025, our goal is to do an evacuation study. We'll be going down to South by Southwest, where we look at what are the top 5 areas of concern for evacuation and what we can use how can we mitigate a large-scale event like that to support our region during put resources in place to make sure that that's no longer a trouble area for us, that evacuations are going to flow, we're not going to have bottlenecks, we can make them as safe as possible. And then, of course, because we like to talk about personal preparedness, I wanted to share with all of you what you can do. Sorry to make it look Brady Bunch-like, but I wanted to include all of you. So knowing the who, what, why, how of emergency management, we kind of just did that, so check, good job. How to reach out to emergency management with questions, because there are questions that arise during any incident, and what is the best pathway of communication for that? Helping constituents understand personal preparedness, and then helping them understand planning and regulations regarding to infrastructure. I get that a lot with evacuations, those questions, or sometimes it just comes to emergency management, but it's really a planning thing. I can't control the number of roads in and out of a neighborhood. I just work with our partners to make sure we can get people out with what we have, that sort of thing. And then be familiar with your emergency plans. We have primary plans that we operate off of, response, recovery, continuity of operations. How to reach out to emergency management with questions, because there are questions that arise during any incident, and what is the best pathway of communication for that? Helping constituents understand personal preparedness. I'm not saying it's your responsibility. And then helping them understand planning and regulations regarding disseminating information, warnings. I get that a lot. Imposing restrictions, ordering evacuations, and restricting reentry, knowing who's responsible for that and where that comes from. I mentioned our core regional plans, and then the training available to all of you, because there certainly is. And so, again, myself, Andy, Scott, we'd all be happy to share that training with you and sit down with you one-on-one to go over whatever that might be. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I will open it up to the Board of Fire Commissioners as well as the Washoe County Commissioners. I will combine the two. You can say which hat you're wearing when you're doing your comments or questions. But I know that it's a joy for the Board of Washoe County Commissioners to represent the whole region and the Board of Fire Commissioners to represent the fire district. So I look to the Board of Fire Commissioners or Washoe County Commissioners to see if there's any questions or comments on the presentation. I'm not seeing any. So Madam Mayor, for the City of Reno.
All right, thank you so much. Any council people? Go ahead,
Yeah.
Councilwoman Dewar, and I'm going
Thank
to
you.
stay on our council rules.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, no,
I just
I'm
have
actually going to shorten it to 2 minutes.
That's fine. I just have 2 questions. One was, you talked about the alert system, which is a fantastic system. I just wondered how, for example, the cell numbers get on there, and do people get the alerts? You know, we heard the comment earlier by Hannah Hubar that they had very little evacuation time. And I just wonder, what are your thoughts about that? And the second question is about, you mentioned right at the end about the roads in and out evacuation plans. Are there some best practices that we can implement back at our jurisdictions? Right now, we have sort of a standard 2 roads in and out. I've been talking with our council about 3. Because some of our developments are way up, and often they only have 1 exit road down to a major road. So they may have 2 out of their development, but only 1. Like, for example, I'm thinking of Ridgeview that comes into Plumas. You know, they all have to come down Ridgeview, and they all bottleneck at Plumas and McCarran. So 2 questions are just, how does the alert system work and the issues that we heard? And the second is, any recommendations on the evacuation planning for us at our councils?
I'll talk to the evacuation. I know Kelly and I that discussed about doing an evacuation model study. Also, we received a CWPP grant, that's the Community Wildfire Protection Plan, that includes the option to do an evacuation study. So that's something that is on our radar to look, probably to answer some of the questions like you're asking. We do live in an area with multiple areas of ingress and egress. We're not like a paradise where, you know, geographically it was one way in and one way out. That doesn't, however, mean that there aren't better ways to add extra egress areas to certain neighborhoods for sure. And working with different HOAs and communities is what that looks like in the future.
I appreciate the question. I've actually spoken with our planning team this week on the very same thing. Should we have 3 routes of ingress and egress versus 2? And a key term that they used was connectivity. That's really what you want, is connectivity. And looking at how that works for each neighborhood. So we are moving that forward in communicating with our fire partners to see their input on that, and then with your jurisdictions as well. So that is something that will be coming through, and I appreciate you being open to that when it happens. In regards to the alerts, we were on a different alerting system when Davis Fire happened.
Really?
So we were using a different program. That program has been known to have issues, which is why we switched over. I'll say I never had something approved so quickly in my life. There are always challenges with alerts, right? And that's why I mentioned that we use every technological means available to us. Radio, TV, cell phone, landlines, still a thing that you can use. So cell phones are wonky. Have you ever been on one side of the room and not received a text, but you get it on the other side of the room? Very frustrating.
Yeah.
I just make sure in my communication with the public that they understand that, and that they have multiple means of receiving alerts and information. They're aware of that ahead of time. The issues, the verbiage we use is have a kit and make a plan, stay
something
informed,
approved
and
so
that's that
quickly in my
informed
life.
piece. But cell phones are not foolproof. There are challenges with alerts, right? And that's why I mentioned that we use every technological means available to us. Radio,
But you think the new system's
TV,
better than what
cell
we had
phone.
before?
I've not seen
still a thing that
or
you
heard
can use.
the issues. So
From any of our partners
cell phones
that
are
have adopted
wonky.
this
Have
new
you ever been
system,
on one
including
side of the
Carson
room
and
not
Douglas?
received a text, but you
It
get
is
it
a
on the
system
other
that
side
California
of
is
the room?
using,
Very frustrating.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to hear
what
comes
I just
out.
make sure in my
You have to
communication with the
actually
public
review from
that they
the
understand
they're
that, and
having,
that they
and if any
have
of that
multiple
is
means
related
of
to their
receiving.
alerting system.
All right, thanks. All right, any other colleagues? Councilwoman Ebert? I didn't know if that was your hand up or down, or, go ahead.
Cell phones are not foolproof. There are challenges with alerts, right? And that's why I mentioned that we use every technological means available to us. Radio,
But you think the new system's
TV,
better than what we
cell
had?
phone,
So
landlines.
something that I hear a lot from my constituents is
So from any of our partners, cell phones are wonky. Have you ever system including
a large
Carson and not
community
received a
need
text?
to
It
add
is
it
a
on the
system
others,
that
which is
California is
Very
using.
95 with limited
It'll be
options
interesting to hear
each
what
way.
comes I just make sure in my communication with the public that they understand
Kind of
that, and that they have multiple means of receiving.
that area, we have, a large community out there that currently only has 2 lanes on the 395, only has 1 lane on Union
Cell phones
Street.
are
I
not
know just
foolproof.
there are 2 years ago, we had the Peavine fire, and I personally evacuated. I received several texts during the day about the evacuation area spreading, and we left before, we were in a mandatory evacuation. It didn't get that close to us. But I knew that if it did come to that, we would not have the ability to leave because the roads would be too congested. Are there any plans looking into large areas that are kind of restricted by access?
So I'll say this. This is why we're doing it. Cell phones are not
Just
there are
2 years ago, we had the Peavine fire, and I personally evacuated. I received several texts during the day about the evacuation area spreading, and we left before, we were in a mandatory evacuation. It didn't get that close to us, but I knew that if it did come to that, we would not have the ability to leave because the roads would be too congested. Are there any plans looking into large areas that are kind of
It's just a part of the game. I think, obviously Caldwell Fire evacuation is a good example of traffic during an evacuation. I'll say this. Less than ideal. We looked at our gaps during that and have planned and postured ourselves to do better next time. Yeah, so I'll just say, no one was injured though, and there was no loss of life in that evacuation, despite the amount of time that it took. So that's why a lot of times we talk about personal preparedness. Don't play how low can I go with my gas tank, because you may have to leave for whatever reason, and if you don't have gas, then you are not prepared to be able to evacuate. So the answer is yes, in that we would like to do an evacuation study to identify those issues, and so that we can, as a community, do better in the future.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, just wanted to make sure that that area in particular is being looked at, because, talking about fires in California, I know that there was people that died in their cars in the Paradise Fire. So that's something that my constituency brings up a lot with me, is concern about some type of a event that requires evacuation that we don't really feel like we have access, and we don't really have a plan other than deal with traffic and try to get out of the area. So I just wanted to know if that area specifically was going to be getting looked at.
Yeah, so for the study, it is the entire county, and then as you heard Chief Ancho mention, that we're looking to tie in CWPP to include City of Reno and possibly City of Sparks as well.
Okay. And will these results be communicated with anybody like NDOT, RTC?
Oh,
okay.
So all of those partners that you see that I showed on the screen, we bring them to all of our planning, our studies. We want them at the table because they are subject matter experts. So we don't want to spend our time and resources doing a half-baked study that don't have experts at the table. We're not doing it for show. We genuinely want to do better for our communities. As you said, you've been evacuated. I myself have been evacuated. It's scary. Even if you've done all the preparedness in the world, it's still scary.
Yeah.
And so we want to do what we can to go above and beyond the minimum efforts to make sure that we're keeping our community safe.
Yeah. I hope that NDOT and RTC would look at those things and maybe use them to incorporate into future design as well. So, thank you.
All right, thank you. Kelly, I kind of piggybacking off of Councilwoman Ebert just really quickly, and then I'm going to head over to my right over here. Thank you for what you do. Thank you, Chief Ancho. I really appreciate your service. However, I'm just hearing that we have to do an evacuation study. Are you telling me today we don't have any plans for evacuation, those types of things? I think one of the things that I would love to see, because I haven't seen it yet, and maybe you're communicating that to someone else, so I'm not trying to cast any blame there, but is an after-action report of what went well, what didn't. I did not know we were on different systems when you just mentioned that to Councilwoman Dewar. So I think these are things that we need to address when especially trying to make these decisions, what we can help you with beforehand. But I would like you to address saying that we're going to do this evacuation study, because what happens if we have an event tomorrow? I just feel like we have got to address these things today.
Yeah, absolutely. We currently have an evacuation plan.
Okay. I wasn't hearing that. Did anyone hear we have an evacuation plan? Okay.
Yeah. So we have 92 plans that we operate off of, train for, plan for.
So you're ready to go in the event?
Yes.
Okay,
so
perfect.
we're training all of the time for this. I think what we've seen in the past year is that we had a lot of real life opportunities to put into practice our evacuation. We did the evacuation exercise in Incline Village to test at the highest level. So there's different types of exercises, right? Starting off with a tabletop exercise where we're all sitting around talking through something, all the way up to we have people in the field doing the things.
Okay.
So in that exercise, there was people knocking on doors,
Okay.
We practiced our alerts. We were telling people, if you're evacuating in this exercise, please go to the community center, which would be your shelter, and then we had a preparedness fair there to simulate
Okay.
that.
I just
We
want
do
to know
have a plan.
I want to know you're ready. I want to know you're prepared. That's what the community wants to know.
Yes.
And I get very nervous whenever I hear studies and all
No.
these kinds of things that take forever that government loves to do.
So we
They're
have a
just
plan.
super
I think
challenging.
The plan needs to be updated, and to do that at the best level possible is why we need to do the study, because as you've all mentioned, we're growing. There are new neighborhoods that weren't there before. If we
Okay.
go off of census data, that might be skewed and not include partners that are visiting for any given event, and how the population swells in an area for that. And so those are things we want to incorporate.
You're just saying you need to update it?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I appreciate that. How long does a study take? Or what is something like this? How long would we have to wait?
Sure, yeah, so I guess that's dependent on how quickly we're able to identify funding, how quickly we can bring our community together to provide the data needed for the vendor that is chosen to go through the process of identifying all of this.
Okay.
Nevada County did this in California, and it took them 1 year.
Okay, thank you so much. Councilwoman Taylor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Quick question. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for all of our partners for being here. You may have presented this, but the question that I've been getting from constituents is, how do we plan, prepare, and mitigate for things that have happened in neighborhoods or regions that aren't ours, and make sure that we are prepared for things? For example, the fires in Southern California. What are we doing here to make sure that we can prepare and plan as appropriate as possible?
And do you mean on the individual level?
Just as a region, how are we planning and preparing for things that we might be seeing as hazards in our neighboring regions?
So certainly all of the things that I've discussed today. We also work with our partners in those affected areas to hear about their specific challenges. So Paradise, for example, is one. We've gone there. We've seen how their topography is, what their fuels look like. We've talked to their different responders to find out what their challenges are and how we cannot do those here. It's also important to learn how we're different. So tailor things mitigation activities for our community specifically that still reduce those impacts. I think there's also individual things. Somebody's mentioned defensible space previously. Our team did a deep dive recently on the houses that survived in LA. Why did they survive? What does that look like? So that we could speak to it. That's certainly not our role. We have a planning team for that, but
So I guess what I heard you say is you are looking outside of our region at
For
other
sure,
hazards,
yes.
for taking that information, bringing it back and tailoring a response that fits our community.
Absolutely. In addition to my duties with Washoe County, I'm also work for the International Association of Emergency Managers as their Region 9 state liaison. So Region 9 is basically the West Coast, but learning best practices from each of the states within that region. And then I also attend the International Emergency Managers Conference, where I'm able to meet my partners from around the world and talk about their best practices and what we can bring back here.
Thank you very much.
Can I add to that as well? As Kelly pointed out in the power.
Can
or
you
the
say your name
PowerPoint
for the
before.
record? Just, sorry.
Oh, sorry, Andy Ancho, City Reno. It's ongoing training that we have for these, whether it's training a tabletop exercise or full-scale training exercises. And typically, we will take events from other places across the nation, especially if they're a significant event with specific, hazards like the LA fire, right? And usually when we do those, the common thing is like, this is so unrealistic. Why would we even train on a drill like this? So we train for things that should not happen. We don't train for the ham and eggs fires or the basic stuff that we do. I mean, we do that throughout the year through all our agencies, but when we put together a training exercise for a regional event, it's typically a doozy that people think is definitely unrealistic. So we train for above and beyond what we expect to happen here.
All right, any further questions from my council? Councilwoman Anderson?
This on.
Do I have it now? Yes. Okay. I just have one question for you. How can the individual members of these three bodies help you become more prepared more quickly in the coming year for this fire season?
Yeah, I think in addition to those last two slides, when emergency management is talking about the resources that we need for the things that we need to do, it's not for a project that we make up and think will be fun. It is for all of the reasons that I explained strategically that we're trying to address gaps in our area. So if we're talking about an evacuation study, that's funding. And I know in my jurisdiction that I've worked with Manager Brown and with the County Commission to identify the appropriate funding to make that happen. I don't want to say funding for everything, but I think, the big thing is knowing what we do, how we do it, what our processes were, talking to each other about it. We were lucky enough to go back to Emmitsburg, Maryland and do a training there, community-wide training. Councilwoman Bybee was there, Commissioner Hill, and I think it was very helpful. You to your experience individually, I'm sure, but I felt that it was helpful in your understanding of emergency management is doing the things that we're supposed to in a coordinated way to take care of our communities. If you identify ways and processes that we can do better in that, we're always open to improvement. But really, it's understanding what we do and what's happening with the community, because it's not one small thing. It's all very coordinated, and being able to present that to the public in a digestible way so that they can be prepared and ready for what may come, I think is really important.
Yeah. I would also like to add what you can do and what we can do collectively is more training. So Kelly had mentioned earlier that there's like a EOC interface training. There's also training that shows where electeds and a policy group fits in with the role of emergency management during a major disaster. And we have offered those classes in the past, and people are busy, but I think if we could offer those more often, more frequently, because everybody's busy, and get as many people in your roles as possible in those classes to see how these roles work. The people that went back to Emmitsburg, they got that in real time. And it's very valuable for everybody to see where emergency management fits between boots on the street and the policy group with electeds. So I think that would be a major step for us.
I think also to add on to that, Andy, if I may, come visit us in the EOC, not during a disaster.
I was going to say, I'm constantly hearing, don't go up there.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, I really am.
Sure, yes, in a disaster, best practice is for elected officials not to be at the EOC. But in blue sky days, when we are not in a disaster, coming up there, seeing firsthand how we're organized, what we're doing, what we're set up to accomplish, would be really beneficial.
Okay, any further questions from the city of Reno? None? Okay, I'm going to send it back to you.
Thank you very much. And before I send it to Mayor Lawson and the city of Sparks, I'm just looking to the clerk. She's texting me that the community's not getting a great feed right now for sound. Is that true?
I think it depends on the platform that you're on. Some are saying it's okay, some are saying that the sound is being overlaid and they can't tell who's saying what.
Oh.
So we may need to take a brief pause just to fix that.
Is that what you're recommending? And then we'll start again with questions from the city of Sparks?
I think that would be a good idea.
Oh, it's been fixed. Okay, never mind. We will now go to the city of Sparks. Mayor Lawson.
That's all you have to do is wave your magic wand. Questions from the Sparks City Council? Mr. Abbott.
I got a couple. Well, first off, I want to give a shout out for you guys having a partnership with Pershing, Elko, Nye, Lyon, and Humboldt. Like, I would have never thought about that would be a partnership that we would be thinking about that up here in Washoe County. So good shout out there. My couple of questions, Kelly, you mentioned about being more prepared and having gas in your car. During the Davis fire, I went up and shot a wedding at Arrow Creek. I was running late, chose not to fill up my gas tank. We got the alert. We had to leave. I went to try to find gas. The gas station was closed. So one of my I asked questions would be for NV Energy. Obviously, that was lack of I made bad choices that day. I recognize that. Is there an ability to have on the perimeter map power outages? Is that listed on there? I don't remember seeing that day.
It's not on perimeter, however, it is on the dashboard. So we pulled in NV Energy's outage map onto the dashboard to see. And then we've also included, at the end of the dashboard, there's a tab for additional resources, a link to their website directly.
Okay, got you. That's good to know. And I have a couple more, if you're okay, Mayor. You mentioned the EOC. I think it's a great opportunity. I'll speak for at least for myself and the city of Sparks. We have an amazing secretary, Cindy Bogan. If you could reach out to her, or I can have her reach out to you guys, maybe we can get a schedule, because I've never been there. I'll be honest with you. So I think that'd be a great opportunity on a nice blue sky day to go up there. My last thing, is there, looking at perimeter, I think you mentioned California was using it. Is there anywhere else in the United States that we're using perimeter? Or like if I'm in Missouri, can I use, I don't know, hop on perimeter and take a look? I just looked now, I didn't see any other,
Yeah,
I see sandbags in Washington County and that's it, in the whole United States besides California.
There is, if you go to a link that has Washoe in the title of that link in the web address, then it will only show you Washoe County. If you just go to perimetermap.com, it'll open it up and you can see more areas. California is on there. You can see all around the lake, with the exception of Placer County. They're on a different system. LA was on a different system as well, and that is something that we compared during the fire, was their map version of perimeter to ours, and ours had, I think, better information and better tools for the public to use. So, yes, they're expanding. To your first point, we do recognize that we're only as resilient as our neighbors around us. And so that is why we are working to share perimeter with anyone in the state who wants to come on board. We also do a statewide continuity of operations plan out of this region.
Awesome, thank you.
Sure.
Ms. Vanderwell, you have anything? Mr. Anderson? Ms. Bybee?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Real quick to your comment, having gone back to Gettysburg to the FEMA Center for that several years ago for that regional exercise was truly amazing. I was kind of like, what am I doing here? I've been elected. These are all the, fire people, dispatch, emergency managers. And then I realized how important being a policymaker was. And I will have to give kudos to the whole team. Some of you are still around and working in that space. They did tell us back there, because they choose cities annually to go back to that training and the exercises. They gave us a real life exercise that they said they had never had a city come in and perform so collaboratively and at such a high level, considering we were 3 jurisdictions and all of us were different positions, from fire and dispatch and electeds, and all of us not even knowing each other's jobs really, even mine for the city of Sparks, but we're Reno and Washoe County as well. And they said that we, at that time, were one of the most outstanding teams that came in, which has really felt good that we were able to work so well together. So that gave me a lot of confidence in our emergency management system. And I would absolutely think that some of the training or your emergency sessions to open to some of the electeds being there to really see what you guys are doing is extremely helpful for all of us and for the region. Thank you.
Mr. Rodriguez, you got anything? Thank you. Okay.
Thank you. And before we move to our next item, Commissioner Clark from Washoe County and Truckee Meadows Fire had some thoughts that bubbled up from the other discussion. So I will go back to Commissioner Clark, and hopefully we can go to the next item.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Some other things came to mind when we're talking about evacuation. I mean, evacuation is the idea that you want to get away from something. Everybody's trying to move away, put distance between yourself and whatever incident might be. And we're focused on fire here today, but there's a lot more involved here. I mean, we've got major interstate highways going through our area. We've got an airport here. We could have airplane crashes. We could have fires. We could have a tank car of some type of chemical. So evacuations are to get the public away from harm. And personal experience, we had the Davis fire, then shortly after that we had the Callahan fire. The evacuation center was set up at the South Valley's library. So I went to go over and look and see what it was all about, and it took me about 45 minutes to go about 2 miles. When you're moving, trying to move people away from an area, and we have lack of power and the signal lights aren't working, or the signal lights are letting 3 or 4 cars at a time, and there's one lane of traffic with no cars on it, and there's another lane that's backed up as far as the eye can see. I suggested this to you before, and I'm going to bring it up here in this body. The CERT people and I mean, obviously, there isn't enough sheriff's deputies to man every intersection, but we need to be looking into having people directing traffic, live bodies making decisions and moving folks along, not relying on traffic signals that may or may not work. When you're evacuating, you want to get away in a quick, safe manner, but you don't want to be sitting in traffic watching one lane of a road wide open. There could, if there were live bodies there directing traffic, I think that'll help in the evacuation scheme. It's been done in the past. I've seen it with my own eyes when somebody's out directing traffic. So I'm thinking about the CERT folks could be helping with that. I'm thinking about the folks in Reno, the auxiliary police department there. I don't know what Sparks has got, but that should be part of the training of having certain folks that can help us get through these log jams and bottlenecks at certain congested intersections and not relying on 3, 4, or 5 cars at a time. So just something I wanted to bring to your attention. Again, thank you.
I appreciate the comment, Commissioner Clark. Any opportunity to bring a light to our volunteer organizations? I know that CERT does train their volunteers in traffic management, and they were engaged during Davis Fire. One comment that you did make, I want to address. If there is an evacuation because there's a hazard in that area, please don't go there. Please don't drive into the area because that is complicating the traffic pattern. So if everybody is headed out, it is going to take you longer to get in because no one is meant to get in except for first responders. So I can't speak to your experience. I appreciate you sharing it with me, but perhaps that is why it took a little bit of time to get in. I know that very quickly that temporary evacuation point was changed to the senior center, and it wasn't opened. I think, and I say this not just to you, Commissioner Clark, but because our friends and partners at Truckee Meadows Fire Protection District in the past have mentioned that citizens will drive towards a fire or towards danger to get a look at it, to get those clicks on social media, to get a great picture for whatever reason. And by no means saying that is what you did, but that has happened in the past with citizens. And so I just want to take the opportunity, if I may, to remind the community to please not head towards danger for whatever reason, if you don't have to.
And just for the record, I wasn't heading towards the danger. I was heading towards the evacuation. But that being said, I'm talking about a situation where let's put everything equal, and let's say nobody's out there being a looky-loo. People are trying to leave their neighborhoods, and they can't get out of their neighborhoods because they're relying on a traffic device that thinks it's normal course of business. It's a sunny day and everything's fine. It's a different situation when people are trying to leave. And when you're trying to leave and you have to rely on a traffic light that really doesn't understand the situation, that's what I'm talking about. We need some thinking people on site to help evacuations and to direct traffic and allow traffic to leave an area. Again, you're right. If people are out there just taking pictures, it's one thing. But in a perfect situation, that wouldn't happen. I'm talking about people who are trapped in cul-de-sacs, trapped in neighborhoods, and can't get out because they're waiting. Somebody else is waiting on a traffic light that thinks there's nothing else happening. That's if there is a traffic light. If there's no power to the traffic lights, then we even have more chaos if we don't have some active citizens directing traffic, be it whoever it may be. So if it's possible to incorporate that in the training, I think it would be helpful in the long run. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Clark. Oh, yes.
Commissioner Clark, Andy Ansel for the record. I was just going to speak to that. Normally on any evacuation, law enforcement is actively involved, not only with helping people evacuate going house to house or door to door, but also controlling as many streets and intersections as they can. So like any typical emergency, that initial part of it, resources are going to be overwhelmed immediately. And so it's going to take time, whether it's CERC or more officers coming from across the city or county or whoever's collaborating. So I know it's frustrating. It's frustrating for us too, but is there a better way? There's always a better way. So yeah, definitely something to take in consideration.
Again, I'm just trying to think of more boots on the ground.
Yeah.
Anytime that I've been involved, and I've been in 3 evacuations in Washoe Valley, I know what it's like out there. What happens with the sheriffs is the sheriffs are posted at an intersection to prevent people from going back in versus directing traffic on the way out. They may help you get out of the first hurdle, but there's other places along the line that turn into log jams and bottlenecks, and that's where we need to make sure the traffic flows to save human life. Thank you.
And I'm hearing from Mayor Lawson that the city of Sparks also has a follow-up with Councilman Rodriguez. So Mayor Lawson.
Go ahead, go.
Testing. All right. I kind of just want to piggyback off of Commissioner Clark a little bit there. Earlier we just heard from our state senator Skip Daly, like what are things that we need, and I think that's going to be the thing is from his angle, more state resources. My other day job, I work for the state, and I was there for the Davis fire and working with the outstanding search and rescue sergeant over there with evacuations, and we were ordering on that day. There was no NDOT workers. It was a Saturday. There was a handful of troopers covering from Fallon, Torino, down to Minden, Gardnerville, Lake Tahoe. So, I mean, to that point, Debbie's our priorities are getting evacuations going. I'm ordering state resources, any law enforcement officer, game wardens, park rangers, and we had people responding from Winnemucca because of the lack of the state resources that we have. And that's something that we need to communicate here as a body, that if we're looking to our state partners, we're looking to the state of Nevada for help. Frankly, we don't have enough. When we have like about 300 troopers covering the entire state of Nevada, and less so with NDOT workers, that's their job, is to get people, control traffic and get those people out. And when you have 5 troopers covering this whole region, that's not the answer. So these are great conversations, and I hope we raise this to our state senator when we talk about this stuff. So thank you.
Thank you. And any last thoughts from the city of Reno? Mayor Sheeby, I don't know if there's any last thoughts.
No, but I think you bring up such a good point. Even in snowstorms, we saw that we just did not have enough hands on deck with NDOT. And not to mention, I don't think people also understand where some of NDOT's responsibility is, city and county. For instance, a lot of people don't know that McCarran is a state highway. And so people call me, Mayor Sheevy, what are you doing? How dare you? How dare you? I'm like, that's not even ours. But I'm so glad that you brought that up, because that is something at the state level we should all be messaging together to understand what that looks like. Because in an event, it has been really challenging with those resources. Good job.
Oh, and it looks like you have a member.
Oh, go ahead. Councilwoman Ebert? Go ahead.
All right, hello. Councilmember Ebert for the record. So in regard to preparedness, talking about the snow, do you guys help with anything like brining the roads or anything like that, just to help before we have a big snowstorm? Is that anything that you guys can engage with or help with? I'm just trying to think of additional resources that we don't need every day, but sometimes we do need help with that.
Typically, that's not an emergency management
I
function.
know, but a couple years ago, we had that big storm in February, and it was really icy, and it was a big problem, and sometimes we just need a little extra help. We don't have enough for everything. So, we had a lot of people sliding off the road and things like that. It just some help with preventative things.
And one of the main things emergency management does is find those resources when
Yeah.
there's a need for them.
Yeah.
And that's where we can come into play and say, hey, we're overwhelmed with the lack of vehicles that can lay down that brine.
Yeah.
Can you help us getting some?
Yeah.
That's
I
where
guess that's what I'm
emergency
asking
management can
for.
come in
Like,
and-
can you help us get more coordination for things like that? That maybe it's not like a building that's on fire, but, you know, anticipation of a big storm that could cause a lot of problems if we don't take, you know, precautionary things before it gets here.
Yeah, definitely. We're always working with our public works and for us CSD crews to make sure that they have the resources that they need. And to Chief Ancho's point, if they need more, what is that and what does that look like? In the storms that you're mentioning, we were stood up and coordinated and believe that's the storm where we had a warming center going on as well. So there were things happening. Obviously can't stop the weather altogether.
Oh, yeah,
And the
yeah.
roads might, the ice might outweigh the efforts, and there's not a lot that we can do about that. In the past, though, we have been asked, hey, can you message out that 395 South is closed? Do not enter Washoe Valley. It is, there are accidents everywhere, and it's not safe for our first responders. So, you know, when an ask comes from a community partner, we do our best to come through for them and make sure that we're communicating safety to the public.
Okay, thank you.
Well, any other members before we close this item? I'm not seeing any. Thank you very much. That was a great conversation, and we are so lucky to have you both supporting these efforts and your incredible team behind you and folks who couldn't come here. This is a region-wide approach, and you're doing it every day, and I just want to thank you both for your service, and we'll continue to see how we can support you. So thank you. We now will move into the Washoe County Board of County Commissioners and the Truckee Meadows Fire District Board. We'll now move into item B2, discussion and potential direction to staff regarding current and future regional fire efforts. Potential direction includes, but is not limited to, pursuit of interlocal agreements or other consolidation plans among the cities and county, other participating entities, support a pertinent consolidation legislation during the 2025 legislative session, review of funding sources and impacts to levels of service, and development of consolidation study to fully assess the needs and costs. I look to the City of Reno, Mayor Sheevy. Would you like to open item B2 as well?
Yes, please.
Okay. And the City of Sparks, Mayor Lawson? Okay. And I look to our staff to see how we will receive a presentation here. And I think it is our chiefs who will be presenting. And if you'll state your names for the record before you start. Thank you very much.
I'm Dale Way, Interim Fire Chief for the Truckee Meadows Fire Protection District. Good morning, Chair Hill, Mayor Sheevy, Mayor Lawson, Commissioners and council members, and my fellow managers. First, let me say that I appreciate all of the firefighters in TM, Reno, and Sparks who have continued to exhibit professionalism in their responses to one another or to one another's jurisdictions. In this first slide, you can see the reason that the Board of Fire Commissioners moved away from the contract for services originally, which was a funding issue. So I took this from the source, as you can see, was the City of Reno and Washoe County response to AB 494 that was prepared in 2010. And what this shows is how the lowest level is cooperation and the highest level is consolidation, and the difficulty in getting from one to another. For me, I came from a system in Southern Nevada that utilized unrestricted automatic aid that's been in place for 4 decades, long before the advent of commuter-aided dispatch and automatic vehicle locators. I was taken aback when I first moved to Northern Nevada and found that the service delivery model was extremely different. The inefficiencies of one battalion chief having to call a neighboring battalion chief to receive mutual aid. It's a pretty antiquated way of providing fire and EMS service to the citizenry. What problem is resolved by consolidating the fire agencies that unrestricted automatic aid amongst all agencies would not solve? With every endeavor comes historical research. And for this endeavor, I pulled from AB 494. It was authored in August of 2010 in response to the 76th legislature. who directed both Washoe and Clark County to look within their region and their cities for cost-saving measures because of the recession. As you can see by the graphic depicted, cooperation is the easiest thing to achieve amongst agencies. When the second most straightforward thing, contract for services, ended in 2012, we went to nothing on this chart. We had forced legislation from 2015 to 2017 for automatic aid for fires only. And when that ended, we went back to nothing on this chart. And it's taken us another 7 years or 8 years roughly to get back to step one, cooperation. Cooperation is nothing more than two organizations working together to achieve efficiency or reduce cost. That was the definition, the start of the definition in AB 494's response. Now that we are at this stage again, we are already seeing significant success and efficiency in service delivery to the citizens of our region. It is through this cooperation model that the 4 distinct entities in Southern Nevada provided seamless service into neighboring and adjoining jurisdictions with no afterthought of whose jurisdiction the call originated in. This cooperation is about providing the fastest, most efficient, and effective service delivery of fire and EMS services to any citizen in the area. I lived in the city of Las Vegas. However, the closest station to my neighborhood was the city of North Las Vegas Fire Station. And they responded every time someone in our neighborhood called for 911 service. This system also had built-in automatic move-ups from one station to others, including a different entity occupying a different jurisdiction station when large incidents occurred. In fact, one of our division chiefs who worked for North Las Vegas Fire at the time, if any of you remember the Monte Carlo fire, it's at the far south end of the Strip. He was at more central North Las Vegas. His station was moved up to a city of Las Vegas station, and then on the 4th alarm, pulled into that incident. So from one end of the Las Vegas Valley all the way to the other. For us, TM and Sparks have worked cooperatively for many years with an enhanced auto aid agreement with untold successes. Moving to unrestricted automatic aid will reduce response times through the elimination of boundaries and the use of CAD and AVL. Reduce the impact on our citizens by receiving care and medical aid for medical aid events faster, and fires being fought quicker that end up being smaller and causing less damage. And reduce the risk to our responders by traveling less distance to each call, as this travel from calls is a major risk for injury to them and civilians. These reductions save everyone by having less loss in the community, and there'll be no additional cost to taxpayers. Highlighting our successes since the recent auto aid agreement with the city of Reno in November, starting November 18th of last year, we have had success every day in reducing response times by dispatching the closest unit to that call. We have already recognized some issues with the model that we were using and made adjustments to improve within this first 90 days. And there will be more improvements to come from that. While there are many success stories, I want to highlight several here that have happened recently that resulted in preventing significant loss of life or significant injury. The first one, November 22nd, 4 days after the auto aid agreement goes into place, was a pediatric cardiac arrest. There was an 18-month-old unresponsive in a hot tub. They were pulled out. They were resuscitated and have made a full recovery with no neurological deficits. So there's a person that's going to go on and generally live a normal life because we sent the closest unit. November 26th, again, 8 days after, a structure fire. It was in Reno. TM units arrived, established command, and worked seamlessly with RFD units to confine a fire to the wall around a fireplace. And January 15th, just this year, 2 motor vehicles head-on accident with extrication RFD arrived first and began extinguishing the car that was on fire, and Truckee Meadows arrived second and began extricating people from the other car. There's other incidents that have occurred, but I wanted to highlight these because I think they're the most integral to this auto aid agreement. I also wanted to take a moment to just mention the Davis fire and the comparison to the LA fire. From my vantage point, I think our region, we mounted a very good response to what could have been a potentially very bad fire, and it was through the work of our crews and a little bit of luck on the weather that wasn't as bad as it was supposed to be, but our crews did exceptional work. I mean, they pounded around for 2 solid days ahead of that weather and made fire lines that, luckily the weather was not as bad as they predicted, and our lines held. But it's all to their work. We are currently working through the final stages of integrating the regional CAD software, which will allow the various dispatch centers to locate and dispatch the closest unit. This is to be completed and go live in September or October of this year. This is just another example of cooperation and improving the fire and EMS service delivery for our region. There should be no boundaries when responding for people's lives and the threat of fire that we live with in this region. I would recommend that we explore and implement all cooperative efforts available to us, starting with full unrestricted automatic aid and changing the operational policies of the organizations that have previously prevented this cooperation. This is what will improve service delivery to all of the citizenry, and we look forward to the continued cooperation with our partners. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
For the record, Walt White, Fire Chief, City of Sparks. I want to continue on this discussion by talking about some of our regional successes. Our operational response is integrated. We provide the same 5 essential services: fire suppression, emergency medical service, hazardous materials mitigation, technical rescue, and community risk reduction. And we collaborate on all of those and provide those 5 essential services with pride. Unified command is something that is an essential part of the incident command system. One of the more recent fires, although not a large fire that occurred in the city of Sparks, the Sullivan Fire, June of the previous year, it was right behind Hug High School, 138 acres. So 138 football fields is really the size of this fire. But we went into a unified command because the fire impacted multiple jurisdictions. It technically started in a portion of Truckee Meadows, burned primarily an edge of the Sparks Fire Protection District and into BLM territory. So for that reason, we established a unified command where you had a representative of each of those agencies in the command post making decisions. Additionally, the Sheriff's Office was involved along with TM because that's where the fire started in the investigation of that incident. Sheriff's also central in the primary responsibility for evacuations on these larger incidents. So I think, more robust discussions on evacuation plans should probably include his participation in these meetings, Sheriff Balaam's participation. We have a joint advisory committee, so each of our agencies has a voice and a voting position when it comes to our emergency medical system. I think perhaps the most impactful service enhancement that the City of Sparks has provided over the last decade has been the implementation of a public-private partnership with REMSA to begin transporting ambulance services. This is something the City of Sparks provided many years ago, 50 years ago, but has reinstated this. In a matter of 6 months, this ambulance has provided over 500 transports and dramatically reduced response times in the Wingfield Springs area, and also lessened our reliance on Truckee Meadows for those services as well. So our resource sharing, clearly we are collectively more than the sum of our parts. And probably one of the great regional collaborations we have right now is our regional hazmat, our triad hazmat team. We're Reno, Sparks, and Truckee Meadows. We pool our resources, we pool our physical assets to mitigate hazardous materials incidents. And we have, this year, we added a regional hazmat coordinator, which is a recommendation of previous assessments from evaluated exercises. And this regional coordinator, Sparks is very happy to host this position as we start this process, but this position could rotate through each of the agencies over time. And this individual ensures that we maintain recruitment and new membership, training, and we are providing the tools and the training that this regional team needs to be successful, because only by pooling our resources are each of our agencies able to provide the highest level of hazardous materials mitigation response. When it comes to our other enhanced efficiencies, our mutual aid system, our automatic aid agreements, in the fire service, we're probably part of one of the best master mutual aid systems in the nation. It's not just a give, it's also a receive. So, having been a fire chief for more than a decade and in the fire service for nearly 40 years, I've had the opportunity to either be part of that mutual aid response or send resources to some of the largest and most destructive and deadliest fires in our region, when I mean that, multiple state region. We sent personnel to multiple different states over the last year. Most recently, we had a battalion chief, Chief Means, who works as our emergency manager, was a strike team leader that took out a multiple agency strike team to the Escalon fire down in LA. Now, with that, we not just help provide support and this well-defined system of certs and quals, but we also have received support through this as well. And the Davis Fire was a great example of a multi-agency, a large-scale activation of resources, and that's purely because there's no fire agency in our county, or probably perhaps in the nation, that can handle all of the types of the risks associated in their area on their own. So it's a system where we're very dependent and reliant on each other. I came from the Sacramento region, and I worked for an agency that at one point was 16 different agencies. Ironically, as Sacramento Metropolitan Fire District became one, we were dealing with 16 different water purveyors. Here in this county, we have multiple different fire agencies and primarily one water district, Tumwa, who have regionalized because, sharing the resources and the assets is a responsible and right thing to do. If you take a look at the recent fires in LA, it's a clear example that a disaster event is a media event. A media event is a political event. And it really will be how well organized we are, how funded and resourced we are, and what type of organized collaborative response we can provide that will either bolster or undermine the public's confidence in appointed and elected officials in our region. So I'm a big advocate that we really explore any and every opportunity, whether it's public-public partnerships, public-private partnerships, to provide the highest level of service possible in our region. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Uh-oh. Good morning, Mayor Sheevy, Chair Hill, Mayor Lawson, and all council members and commission members. I'm Dave Cochran, the Reno Fire Chief. I think we're going to get this back on. Okay. And I'm here to bring this home and then turn it back over to you to talk about what we can be. Thank you. I'm just going to leave that right there. This is kind of the self-actualization of the fire service, right? We should be what we can be. How can we improve? We, and you've heard Chief White and Chief Wade talk about it, work very collaboratively, especially boots on the ground, out in the area, out on these fires, out on these major incidents. But can we be better? I know for my part, the Reno Fire Department, I think both chiefs would agree with me, you should always be looking to improve. You know, the self-examined life is not worth living. We should always be looking at what we can do better. And this is an area where we can do better as a region by looking at these opportunities. Mayor Lawson made a great point about, you know, let's consider all ideas. No bad ideas in a brainstorm. Everything should be on the table. The way we do things now is definitely an improvement. We've expanded that auto aid, we've enhanced that, but are there ways that we can build on that? And I'll start, there's a brief list up there. The elimination of redundancies. We have multiple departments, and unrestricted automatic aid is great, but right now we have a clunky system because we're in different centers, we're on different systems. Now, one of the successes that hasn't been mentioned yet, I think might have been mentioned briefly, was the regional CAD system, which we are going to. We're on schedule to complete that September of this year. That'll be great. It's a great tool that doesn't regionalize us. It gets us a great tool to work toward regionalization. If we can get everybody on those shared systems, particularly shared dispatch, that's really a key point here, where one dispatcher can touch all the resources it needs and send them immediately, depending, you know, the right resource to the right call at the right time. Depending on what is needed, they can grab them from our collective bodies and send them to that call, to that incident. That trickles down to the lower levels too. It doesn't have to be a Davis fire, a Pine Haven fire, or Pine Haven fire again, or a Collin Ranch. Those medical calls where you send, a region sends the closest resource, responds to that medical call. What about the next call that comes in? What if that next call has a closer resource from a different jurisdiction? When you put them all under one umbrella, now you tap that jurisdiction, and now you've responded to the next medical call in a more efficient fashion, which at the end of the day serves the region better, serves the citizens better, who are the people we're really here to serve. When you look at the regional approach as well, and I use regional, I mean that in a very generic sense. It'll be up to the collective bodies here to give direction on what that might look like. You can plan for growth too, right? There's growth going out in the west, and this is a for example, out to the west in the Verdi area. There's a Truckee Meadows station out in that area, but it's Reno jurisdiction. Well, if we're planning collectively, we can utilize that Truckee Meadows service or station to serve that area. There's examples of that to the north, to the south, to the east. So the regional planning benefits from this. The efficiency, the redundancies I mentioned, there's also administrative efficiencies, I'll call them, that we can take advantage of. If you have one policy, we've talked about training, but if you have one policy that you're training to, then everybody is more efficient. They're safer, they're more effective. Do we need 3 training divisions for the 3 different departments, or do we need one collective training division? I think the answer is pretty obvious. And that goes across the board at different levels, at the administrative level of our various departments. And then I mentioned the shared dispatch. In my view, that is really the linchpin, being able to access those resources. And we don't, I'm not suggesting we have to jump all the way to the finish line right here today. We all agreed that that's not gonna happen today. But that should be the finish line where at least a huge piece of it, where we're getting that shared dispatch. One dispatch center can tap into all the resources. We have shared policies, a shared agreement, like I said, the shared resources to deliver the most effective service to everybody in the region. That's going to be the safest thing to do. It's going to be the best for our citizens, for all the citizens, and the best really for the fire service. So I will leave it with that and turn it back over to the body.
Thank you very much. I understand that we have one public commenter signed in. I would Typically, the Board of County Commissioners, when we have a heavy topic, we go to public comment and then have our discussion. So if additional folks want to sign in for public comment, we will be taking those now. I just look to the City of Reno, Mayor Sheevy, yes, you're okay with public comment opening, and the City of Sparks, Mayor Lawson, yes. Okay, Madam Clerk, public comment, please.
We have Barry Duplantis signed in.
Good morning, Commissioner Hill, Mayor Sheevy, Mayor Lawson, Commissioners, council members. My name is Barry Duplantis. I'm the Chief Executive of REMSA. Before I get started, I'd like to actually recognize and thank several members of my board who are here today, particularly Shirley Roberts is here, as well as Mike Pawnee, and other members of my board, and I can't tell you for certain if they're here because there's so many of us in the room today. Cora Case, Derek Glum from St. Mary's, Chris Nicholas from Renown, Katie Grimm from Northern Nevada Medical Center, and Louis Tess. And I would also point out that I've got several members of my staff because we're obviously very interested in this topic of regionalization, for which we would like to consider today. REMSA Health was established as a regionalized not-for-profit EMS provider at the direction of Reno, Sparks, and Washoe County to eliminate historically disaggregated EMS services and ensure centralized, high-quality, and timely responses to emergency and non-emergency medical calls for service in these communities. Our regionalized structure enables our EMS agency to answer, triage, and dispatch appropriate equipment and emergency medical care throughout the region, regardless of boundaries. Our regional service model also enables strategic, effective deployment of healthcare resources throughout our entire region based on dynamic needs which fluctuate routinely. Working as a regional partner, REMSA has secured multiple accreditations, been nationally and globally recognized, and serves as an innovative and cost-effective model, which is viewed around the world. REMSA also is an active participant in the new community dispatch system, which has been commented on a couple of times in this meeting already. And we're very proud that that's going to essentially bring all medical, fire, and police dispatch into one common system, which will facilitate dispatch of closest appropriate resources to 911 calls. So essentially, what I really want to communicate is that REMSA Health is evidence of the community benefits that regionalization can offer. The regionalization of emergency medical services through REMSA some 40 years ago has yielded great benefits for Reno, for Sparks, Washoe County, and it continues to enable REMSA to remain singularly focused on providing exceptional EMS service.
Thank you. I'm so sorry we had to be strict about the time, but we appreciate your comments.
So Monty Turner.
That's what you guys do here. You cut everyone off, huh? Sorry, Ms. Barry.
Good morning, everybody. How are you?
Good morning.
How are you doing? Okay, good morning. How are you?
Good morning.
Okay, I kind of believe and I disbelieve in this. One of the problems we have is a dispatch. I don't know if you guys ever called 911. That's a stopped hole right there. Every time I call, I get nothing. We had something happen at the range. I have a personal range down in South Washoe Valley. We call it. She goes, "Where's the nearest cross street?" Conversation was ended right then and there. Over. She wasn't going to send nobody. So we need to fix dispatch. Dispatch needs to be fixed somehow. 911 doesn't work. So I've been yelling and screaming about private numbers. Mr. Moore came out and did a GPS for us. We did the GPS. I asked her about it, and she goes, "Oh, I don't do GPS." So that was the end of that conversation. Game over. So I don't know what to do. We had an incident at my place a couple weeks ago. My neighbor was burning plastic. So all of a sudden we got smoke coming through my floorboards. Yeah, scary, right? I told my wife, call the fire department. 35 minutes later, here they come. Guy's driving around up the street, and he said, well, I don't see it or anything else. I pulled my my lower cover off for the crawl space. Smoke come pouring out. And I said, I got a fire under my house. Oh, man, this is it. Well, my neighbor's burning plastic. Nice. I got a guy behind me. One of the young ladies here had actually seen it. He's a fire hazard waiting to happen. It's bad. I got a neighbor over here next to me that's got junipers. He won't get rid of them because they're a living thing. He's got trees that will catch up fire instantly, and I mean, I cut everything around my place, all I can do to defend a fire, but there's not much I can do. So I got mixed emotions. Now, I have a stepsister many years ago. Sutro and McCarran was killed because they just put the fire department, they just put the new station in on Sutro and McCarran there. They couldn't dispatch those guys to Sutro and McCarran. They had to wait for a fire truck from Mayberry. I drove a 3-axle wrecker at the time. I had a huge wrecker up there. I said, let me just grab the back of that van and pull it out so the paramedics can take her. The highway patrol said no, we had to wait for the fire department. I got to watch her die. Not good, right? So my thing is, we need to fix dispatch. We need to fix that. Now I got to tell you, Sparks, we had an incident. I drove for Loomis a long time ago, and we had a big chemical incident many years ago. Probably some of the older guys know about it. They were Johnny on the spot. They were ready for anything. In fact, when I was in the hospital, the guy next to me died, and they thought I died. So when they called the fire department, they said I died, so they pushed the thing back. And when I showed up to go pick up my gun and stuff, because they took my gun and everything, that fire chief literally passed out because he couldn't believe I was standing there. He couldn't believe it. But we thought we had 45 minutes to look like the guy that was sitting next to me. That's how bad it was. But Sparks Fire Department was on the spot. I couldn't believe. I mean, I got pictures of the papers and everything else where they got a shower on the side of the street and everything else. It was not good. You know, I don't know what to say, but dispatch to me is the most part you got in this whole thing. Done with time?
Yes, sir. Thank you so much for your time. And I'm sorry, I missed your name.
Monty Turner.
Thank you, Monty Turner. Madam, thank you. Madam
There's
Clerk?
nobody else signed in.
Okay, thank you very much. I will now open questions and comments and discussion for the Board of County Commissioners and the Truckee Meadows Fire District Board. I look to my left, Commissioner Clark first.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Speaking from a citizen's point of view, when a citizen is calling for assistance, they don't know or care about imaginary lines on an imaginary map somewhere. They want help from anywhere. They're not caring about what jurisdiction it comes from. We've got students here. We've got visitors. We've got taxpayers. We've got citizens. We've got residents. They're not caring about any jurisdictional boundaries. It doesn't matter to them. If time is money, time is also life. If somebody's needing help, they need help. They want who's ever the closest, whoever can get there. Minutes seem like hours. And so that's an area of my concern, and that's exactly 100% of what I want to be behind is this automatic auto aid. It should be done already. Talking to the chief from Truckee Meadows about down in Clark County. Clark County has more of a larger population, probably larger land area that they cover. They've been doing this for over 40 years. We're late to the party here in this county. That should be our first thing that we should be concentrating on. Regional dispatch and auto aid. So that's the thing that I think that any citizen is going to agree with. You're going to get 100% support. We just heard from Mr. Turner, and he's talking about things that he has personal knowledge of. But the people that I talk to want help when they call for help. And however we need to do that, that should be our top priority. And regionalization should be secondary to that until we can get everybody who needs help can get help as soon as possible without regard of whose jurisdiction it is. That's what the public's looking for. So from my point of view, how do we get to that? That's what I'm looking to resolve. Chief, I'll also have a couple of questions for you if you could come back to the podium. You sent me a report, and that's why I came down to chat with you, because I didn't want to trust my memory, but you've got this memorized. Could you share this with this body? In 2019, there was a study done in Reno that said that the city of Reno should have done this. And again, I'm not calling out anybody on this board. Nobody was here in office during this time, probably. This was a long time ago. That was then, this is now. We need to address things the way they are now. But can you give the other members of this body an update on that particular report and what they suggested should have been done in 2019? Thank you.
Dale Wade, Interim Chief, Truckee Meadows Fire District. The report he's referring to, I believe, was a study conducted in 2019 by the city of Reno. And one of the recommendations was to restore automatic aid with TMFR.
Thanks for putting that on the record, and it's 6-7 years later, and it still hasn't been done, and why? And so we should be, as a region, looking at that and taking that recommendation to heart and acting on it. So thank you for bringing that to my attention and the rest of the board. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Clark. Commissioner Andriola.
Thank you, Madam Chair. What a great day to see all of our whole community represented here. It was a little overwhelming, and I'd also like to extend a huge thanks to Mayor Sheevy for really leading this opportunity to have this discussion, and certainly Mayor Lawson and everyone who's been involved either currently in this discussion or previous discussions that seem to continue. It's clear that we have heard themes that came from all three fire chiefs during their presentation in terms of cooperation, and really a commitment to public safety goes without saying, period. The reality is that moving towards a dispatch that we'll see launched in September to October, although I was told at one point a date, but I'm not going to share it in case that slips. But the point is that it's here, it's coming, and that is going to solve, to a certain extent, some of the issues that have been brought up in the concerns. But I do think that this is a really big subject. It's a really important subject. We're talking about the safety of life, structures, and preserving our community with all the resources that are needed to protect all citizens, regardless of jurisdiction. Having said that, I think that there is more work to be done, but I think that there are policies that we could all put into place. You know, Mayor Sheevy would not be leading this charge in terms of having this wonderful body assembled today if it weren't that there seems to be a sense of awareness, whether it's the Davis fire, the LA fire, and us moving into more wildfires in our vernacular. And so I think the fact that we are all here, we're all committed, that we should be looking at implementing policies that we could do right now across all jurisdictions in terms of unrestricted auto aid that has no cost impact, but has a huge ROI. And I think that is, in terms of next steps, I'd like to see that really as a priority as we move forward in this discussion that, probably will continue. But unless I'm wrong, I believe there are those provisions that are available to all three jurisdictions, and I would call all three of us to enact those as quick as possible. I also want to just add that I think that, I can't remember who said it, talking about experts, listening to the experts. You know, I have been deployed to disasters. I've seen how it works. I understand the incident command system, but I am not a professional safety professional, a public safety professional. The reality is that we have to have the experts also be working together to craft what would be ideal, and I think having a third-party study would help, an independent study that would help, and be able to extrapolate all of the great work for all three jurisdictions, but more importantly, identify what can be done, how we can improve, and what those benefits would be, and what that cost might be. That takes time. So I'll go back to my first recommendation for consideration by all three jurisdictions that it's probably too late to get on Tuesday, Washoe County's agenda, but certainly that we get on the agenda a policy that we all can agree upon that is as simple as what we're talking about, and that's unrestricted auto aid. I think the point is that when somebody does pick up the phone, they don't need, and nor should they, be worrying about who's closest, what's happening. They want a response, and we have the ability to save lives. I think we all have an obligation to fulfill that. So that's what I would ask, is that we strongly consider doing what we can right now as we move forward through this process. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Andriola. Commissioner Garcia.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We've thanked staff, elected officials, and guests for being here today, but we haven't given any acknowledgement to those that have lost homes or been impacted by fire. So thanks for everybody that shared a story today or has that personal connection. I think that's why we're all here. Whether we've faced it or felt it ourselves, we're all here for that common interest and goal so that it doesn't impact any other lives. I also didn't want to forget to thank those who have the boots on the ground that put their lives on the line every single day. So to all the firefighters who are in the room today and those who are listening online, personal thank you from all of us for the commitment and service to our county. As county and fire commissioners, we get a lot of interaction and the privilege of interacting with Kelly Echeverria and our chief, and so we hear and talk about these conversations all the time. And I think this is why this day, this communication is so critical, because it's really connecting the dots between all of the jurisdictions. So thank you for everybody for carving out time out of your busy schedules. I have a very regional lens that I'm just kind of built into, given the geographical distribution of my district, District 3. I believe I'm the only elected official up here that has parts of her district that is unincorporated Washoe County, City of Sparks, and City of Reno. And so I take a lot of pride in being able to work with council members at the City of Reno and City of Sparks in these common goals. And I think that, you know, regardless of where our jurisdictional boundaries are, we always have to put that regional lens at the forefront. When we talk to our constituents, Monty's one of my constituents, Mark's one of my constituents, public safety is always going to be number one. And what they care about is faster response times. Nothing else matters more to our constituents. The second thing they talk to me about, and I'm sure they talk to you all about, is being good stewards of the taxpayer dollar. Those, to pretty much everybody we talk to, are the two most important things: public safety and being good stewards. So I don't want to echo everything that my colleagues have said here today. I think a lot of us are thinking and hearing some of the same things. But just for the record, I fully support the shared computer aid dispatch, unrestricted automatic aid, and eliminating those boundaries, allocating resources where they're needed, and in particular, Sun Valley is a good example of that. We have a very, very busy station in Sun Valley, the busiest in Truckee Meadows Fire Protection District. Spanish Springs also has an incredibly busy one, and we found ways to staff that site with the appropriate number of folks and an ambulance to make sure that we're meeting those critical needs. And so I just implore everybody to kind of be thinking about allocating those resources where they're needed the most. And I do have a couple of questions. Oh, and I did want to support Commissioner Andriola on that third-party study. I think that will help us address those redundancies that we often face. Two questions I had. One related to the advisory and committee. So maybe if one of the chiefs could stand up. I heard Joint Fire Advisory Board mentioned, and then I heard Joint Advisory Committee on EMS mentioned. Can you please talk to us what we currently have?
Yeah, we currently have a Joint Advisory Committee for EMS. And each of the agencies, as well as REMSA, Dr. Kingsley oversees that or sits out as per county oversight, but they each have voting representation and a voice at that meeting.
Okay. And the second question I had was related to the dispatch. We are moving to the system, but talk to us about what you as experts think would be most beneficial in terms of a location, a physical building, if that's needed, yes or no?
Personal, professional opinion based on work experience here and elsewhere, having a regional dispatch center that serves fire. This is something we had in the Sacramento region. That's a PSAP, a public safety answering point, which, you have to be a licensed public safety answering point to receive requests for help from directly from the public. We have a system now where we have 3 PSAP centers, one for County, Reno, and Sparks. But under a franchise agreement, roughly 80% of the fire calls are transferred to a non-PSAP, REMS's dispatch center, where it receives, we call EMD. It's a type of, determination of what the appropriate resource or response is for that call, and are dispatched. Our fire engines are dispatched from our PSAP, but our ambulance through the public-private partnership is dispatched through REMSA.
I think, I don't want to speak on behalf of everybody, but a lot of us are here because we know that this is the most important thing to our community. If we don't have public safety, we don't have anything else. There's no stability in our community. And so I would implore everyone, if we do move forward with a third-party study, to put every idea on the table, including a facility, if that is mutually beneficial to all parties involved. But thank you for your presentations and your time today.
No problem. Just to mention, there have been previous consulting studies too that made several recommendations, that many of which just were not implemented or did not get, probably did not get the consideration they probably should have, and there's the possibility of just revisiting some of those as well.
Thank you. And on a personal note, I experienced the unified command on the Sullivan Fire, and I wanted to say thank you to Sparks and TM on that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Garcia. I'll now move to the city of Reno. Mayor Sheedy.
All right, thank you so much. Council members, Councilwoman Ebert? No, Councilwoman Dewar?
Yeah, just a couple things. Did you want to go? Just a couple things. The comment was made, what happened in 2019, or I've been elected since 2014, and since I got on council, I kept hearing reverberations from the fire divorce, and we heard it for years. It went through probably the first 3 years of my tenure. There were studies done, and that's what I wanted to bring up, that of course studies are needed, but part of the problem is those studies have been done, and I completely concur that we didn't take a close enough look at the recommendations and actually do them. Our chief knows I've been frustrated that the CAD regionalization, let's call it, isn't being done till September. I've been asking, we directed that a long time ago, and it seems like it takes so long to implement the things that we asked to do. And I don't know how to fix that problem. So we have great ideas. We've given the direction, policy level direction, probably at every jurisdiction, and yet it doesn't seem to quite take hold. And so that's the issue I would like to address. And I think that Chief Dale Wade mentioned about this, I think the term is unrestricted auto aid. I'm not sure what that is. I don't know how that is different from auto aid. Could you just explain that? What is unrestricted auto aid?
Dale Way, Truckee Meadows Fire. The difference would be in our auto aid agreement right now with the city of Reno, it's for very specific areas and regions. Unrestricted automatic aid would be across all boundaries.
And see, I think we thought that was happening. I think we thought when we asked for auto aid that it would be wide-ranging and apply to all the activities that are done. So anyway, I'm completely supportive of whatever we can do and have been for 10 years fixing these issues. And they seem to be fixed very incrementally. And I would love a broader answer And I would love, as the direction that we give, to actually get implemented in a quick way. So I want to support the bill. I don't know what it looks like with Senator Daley. And I also want to support the things all of our chiefs have recommended and what my colleagues are saying. I just want us to move forward expeditiously. So we're very committed to this public safety initiative. Thank you.
Thanks. Councilwoman Ebert, did you?
Yeah, not to be a broken record, but agree with the auto aid, and I think it should be unrestricted too. I've had some instances in my ward where at the golf course up in my community, there were a couple medical emergencies that happened, and there was a fire station within sight that people thought those emergency people should come over, and a fire truck came from somewhere else, and those people actually died. And I don't know that they would have been saved had emergency services got there sooner, but it was very difficult for the families of the people that passed to be able to literally see a fire station across the street and not have those people come to help them. And I know that we now have an agreement for that location, so things like that don't happen again. But I just think that it just speaks to the need for that, and I think it should be unrestricted. That if we're really have these people to help, then they should go to where they're needed. So. And also the study, the 2019 study, did that go over these things that we're asking for to identify things that might be redundant, or what did that go over exactly?
So thank you, Dave Cochran, Reno Fire Chief. That study was done in 2019 by an outside agency called CPSC, and I mentioned in my presentation that we're not afraid to examine our service all the time, and that study made, I think it was 32 proposals, a number of which we were already doing, like they said, suggested, recommended, implementing an apparatus replacement program. We'd already been doing that. The auto aid piece, we have been looking at that. Part of the challenge there is the fact that we have the 3 PSEPs that you heard Chief White talk about. So they're in different locations. Truckee Meadows is actually on a different system altogether in a different location. So it makes that auto aid very clunky. But these are the things that we want to look at. If I were to recommend a path forward, I would say direct city managers to get together with the fire chiefs, look at the direction you're giving us today, and figure out how we can do that, taking into account, because we haven't talked about costs, and that's always an issue, but taking into account costs and efficiencies and redundancies and all the things that we don't want to necessarily get into the weeds to today, but we can at the manager or fire chief level.
Yeah, okay, great. And then just one more quick question, or is my time up? Okay, so I had another question. Since I wasn't here during the divorce of, the services, what was the reason for that? I mean, there must have been a reason why they came apart at that time, and I know times change, so obviously we're considering doing things differently now, but what was the reason that happened in the first place, if you know?
So what I can speak to, I was actually the boots on the ground. I tell people, like back when I used to have a real job, I was the boots on the ground during that consolidated period. And I don't think I was even a battalion chief at the time of the divorce. I can tell you from an operational standpoint, that regional approach was spectacular. It worked really, really well. Why it broke apart, I've heard different things, and it'd probably be a little irresponsible for me to speculate because I wasn't in the room. I don't know what the conversations were. I know a path forward was proposed that did not get accepted by the parties at issue. And at that time, of course, it was Reno and the county. Sparks was not involved, but we couldn't save it at the end, and so here we are.
Does anybody know, though, why that happened, what the disconnect was? I know you don't feel comfortable speaking on that, but do we have anybody that can kind of educate us on what happened?
Well, you do probably have some past elected officials in the room that could answer that very well. And let me just go back to, I should probably provide some context from 2019 when we did this study. And Chief, the direction was to do whatever you possibly can to make our city the safest. It has always been my motto. It's something that is number one on my list through and through and through. And to be honest, and I always say, and people know, they know me well enough whenever I say before I call the elephant out in the room, there's been a lot of closed-door meetings where I was told absolutely not. The political landscape looked very different in 2019, so I want to thank all of my colleagues up here. I commend all of you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart and from our community's heart, all of you for being here today. Do you know how hard it was to get everyone in the room? And it's just been constant. It's been constant. But I said, you know what? This is the time. We need it now. And unfortunately, it took the Davis fire for people to say, oh my God, things have changed in this region. And that is unacceptable. And so as the fire chief of the city of Reno, I want you to make our city, county, Sparks, I don't care what it is, the safest it can possibly be. But all I did was get pushback and pushback and pushback. And so it's got to be all three of you guys working together. You are the experts. You are the ones that we rely on. Because at the end of the day, our lives are in your hands. And matter of fact, I do want to thank you to every single firefighter that's in here, men and women of the fire departments. All of you guys, you should stand up because you guys saved a lot of lives during that last fire event. It was miraculous what you did. And on a moment's notice, that wind could have taken all of us out. But I'm just going to say it how it is, that there has been far too much political fighting, even amongst the fire chiefs. I'm going to shut my mouth because I feel very strongly about this. But that has always been the direction from the city of Reno, and the public needs to know that. Whatever it takes, whatever it costs, I can't put a price on your life, and I'm not going to. Hannah knows that. So I will always do whatever we possibly can, and I know all of my colleagues will too. All of you. Like Commissioner Clark said, we don't know boundaries. Fire doesn't know boundaries, does it? Doesn't know. It's just there to destroy you. Matter of fact, I know you were close. Sure. And all your fur babies, the ones you love so much. Anyway, so I just want to give context to that. The amount of pushback that we've received. We couldn't even get in a room. That's why thank you to all of you today. Thank you. All right, on to the right of me, Councilwoman Taylor, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I also appreciate all my colleagues and the leadership in this room today. And I read the 2014 Blue Ribbon Committee, and to what Mayor Sheevy was saying, it said the biggest obstacle to this challenge was turf, power, and politics. Mm-hmm. And looking today, I think that barrier has been eliminated. So I think we can move on to what's next. And Senator Daley said, focus on the goal and listen to the experts. And what I heard from our experts is complete mutual aid. I heard also that regionalization is responsible and the right thing to do. And then I heard we're always looking to what we can do better. And that's what I heard from the fire chiefs. So from my perspective, we can work together, gather additional information for enhanced regional fire options. And in that will come the regional or the unrestricted mutual aid and regionalization. And we've eliminated the political barriers by being here today. So thank you to my colleagues. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councilman Martinez, go ahead.
It looks like I'm on now. I appreciate all my colleagues being here as well. I wanted to echo some of that. I don't want to be redundant in the comments that had already been made, and I'm sure Councilmember Anderson and the council members from Sparks will also have some great things to say, but I'm looking forward to working together as a region to do exactly what Senator Daley implored us to do, right? Making sure that we're improving our response times, making sure that our preparedness for urban wildlife interface sections of our city and our region are protected, and that there is faster response times for individuals. One of the things that was poignant to me during the presentation from the fire chiefs was the fact that currently we're at a co-op phase, and if you look at the second to last slide that was presented in that pyramid, the efficiencies continue to increase as we move, even though it's harder to get going maybe to regional fire or shared dispatch, partial sharing. The harder that we work on this dais to move the needle along, the better the service will be for our community. So I just wanted to make sure I highlight those two things. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Councilwoman Anderson.
Good morning. Had it? Still have it? All right. I just want to speak to you from a slightly different perspective. Chief White, your chief Means is responsible for introducing me to my husband, which made me part of this regional fire family almost 24 years ago. And it's a family that I'm very, very proud of, and I was part of that family that went through this divorce. And what I think everybody in the community needs to understand is that the electeds got a divorce and the fire departments didn't. Fire family takes care of each other regardless. They don't notice the difference in your uniform. They don't notice the difference in your department or who calls the shots for your department. They just know what your equipment, your talent, and your expertise is, and they know you're there and they're ready to put you into action. And I think that I am wildly encouraged by the efforts today to have us all here, the ability for all of us to communicate with the care and concern that our community and our firefighters deserve. And I want to tell you what I'm confident about. I'm confident that with the talent, equipment, seniority, and stations that we currently have in our region, we are in a unique position to recast our resources in a way that ensures the right personnel with the right apparatus are responding to every call as quickly and effectively as possible. Wildfire and emergency response don't stop at jurisdictional boundaries, and neither do our firefighters. And neither should our ability to respond with the best resources available. One of the most pressing challenges we face is a wave of retirements across all of our departments. This threatens us with the loss of institutional knowledge and experience, widening the seniority gap and leaving us more vulnerable when experience is needed most. By coming together as a region in all three departments, we can fill in those gaps, strengthen leadership, and ensure balanced expertise across the entire department so that no one area is left without seasoned guidance when it matters most. I'm incredibly encouraged by the willingness, cooperation, and energy I see in this room today. The effort to collaborate and find solutions that move our fire service forward is exactly the kind of leadership our community expects and deserves. It's not just about improving emergency response. It's about ensuring our firefighters are supported, our residents are protected, and our region is prepared for every fire season, storm season, and evolving disaster that comes our way. So thank you for every bit of work and preparation for this meeting, and I look forward to the solutions that we're able to come to as a community.
All right, thank you so much. Good job.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
I just had one follow-on, and when our chief said, and we were directing, you recommended bringing the chiefs together, working with the senior management at the cities and the county. One thing I didn't hear mentioned was, I heard a lot about dispatch, but what I didn't hear is that we have a new potential dispatch center, and that's at our new public safety center that is centrally located, designed a huge area, designed for regional cooperation on dispatch, if not unified dispatch. So when you're looking at these things, I hope you'll look at this resource that's brand new, completely wired, ready to go. And how can we bring that to the table for the benefit of all? Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay. I appreciate that comment again, just like I said, dispatch is the linchpin. We need to make that happen. We need everybody consolidated. To Commissioner Garcia's point, they need to all be together on one system in one room doing one job to be the most efficient we can be. And I guess I would just add on that the comments from Mayor Sheeby and
Councilmember Taylor about the politics and what happened before. If I were to say what happened, why it happened, that's probably what I would say. But you both pointed out that things are different today. And I appreciate you all for being here to make a difference in what we can do as the fire service for the region.
Thank you. And now, City of Sparks, Mayor Lawson.
I'm going to start on this end. Mr. Rodriguez, you got anything?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm kind of all over the place, but I've been waiting for this moment for a while. I guess to the chiefs, you do hear from some of my colleagues that they're supporting the ideas of a study. To my understanding, there have been studies done, and I would imagine that somewhere throughout the United States that there's been studies that have been done that are similar to the environments that we have, whether it's in Colorado, Utah. We're not entirely unique. So the three of you chiefs, do we need another study? I look at the three of you, I look at our city managers, I look at our CFOs. I feel that we have enough talent and experience that could get this stuff implemented relatively sooner than a study.
Thank you. Dave Cochran, Reno Fire Chief. I appreciate the question. At some level, I would say no, because we are the subject matter experts. We know this region, we know how it works, and we know how we can be most efficient. But the benefit to a study, and I'm not walking back my comment, I'm suggesting that if you have an independent third party, that kind of breaks down any jurisdictional barriers or any issues of who's in charge or what's best for one jurisdiction versus the other. If you get that third party input, then we could say, look, here's the neutral input. This is what the neutral subject matter expert suggested. So that's where I would come at from that.
Understood. And then I guess it kind of, or go ahead.
Well,
Yes,
just
please.
if I could touch on that too, ultimately there should be an outside independent consultant that's unbiased and doesn't have the, inappropriate proprietary ownership of, one jurisdiction over another. So, and things have changed since some of these other studies have occurred. So, an efficiency and feasibility study with a good consultant probably could be, would be probably necessary. However, I think we have a bigger question to answer first is legislatively, can we move forward before we would look to do an RFP and jointly fund a study like that? So I think, we got some legislative questions that need to probably be answered before we would really invest, but also to Chief Cochran's point, there is a lot of, subject matter experts available internally that, I think we all understand the issues and have agreement on some of them. It's just the most effective way to move forward, both financially and politically.
Sorry to pile on, but I think there are things we can do right now with the managers and with the fire chiefs, these subject matter experts, so we can move the ball forward, like a lot of you have suggested, without the study. The study could maybe take us to the next level once we get to the point where we agree, okay, now we need that next level, that help to bring it to, like I said, the self-actualization of the fire service.
I do appreciate that, and I think a lot of us were from around here. I know over the last 2 decades, I've seen a fire service cooperation fluctuate up and down. I know Chief Wade mentioned some success stories that are fairly recent, and that's great. But I know for each and every one of those, there are decades of stories where there's been loss of life and property because of the political climate that we've really all inherited, majority of us. So I just want to go on record that I support this moving forward. Automatic aid, mutual aid. I know a lot of you guys think that sounds great, and frankly, that's a great temporary solution. I don't think that's sustainable long term over the years, because we've seen the political climate can change instantaneously around here. So I support something that obligates us to make one fire agency moving forward for our children and our grandchildren, that that this doesn't happen again. I don't want another echo of a Sierra Fire, NDF, stories that are horrible, really. But so I just want to go on record that I appreciate what Councilwoman Anderson stated. I just want to echo some of those things that she's mentioned, And frankly, I support one agency, one way of doing things, one policy, one administration. And the fact of the matter is, we got to look at the funding too. We got to look at our budgets. What we're doing is not sustainable. So hopefully we can work something together amongst ourselves. Frankly, hopefully we don't have to have the state of Nevada tell us how we got to do this. And I can see that coming.
Ms. Bybee?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I probably echo a lot of the feelings that people have stated already. I think today or tomorrow, the unrestricted auto aid should just happen. And you said no cost, and that's just something that would make a huge difference for today. The regional CAD, that I would agree, oh my God, I've been here 10 years too, and I don't know how long we've been, Naomi, how long, and Mayor, how long we've been talking about that regional CAD, and it's just, unfortunately, with government, it doesn't ever move as fast as we'd like it to. I think we're better on the local level than we would be state or federal, but it's just frustrating when something like this has taken so long. But the good news is it's coming. I think in listening to the chiefs and their reasoning, and which I totally support of all the reasons, that we would look at a consolidation, resource sharing, unified command, administrative efficiencies, eliminate redundancies, all of those, especially from the fiscal side, which for me is the two top priorities for me. Number one is safety. I think it's our first job as elected officials is public safety. It just is. And then the fiscal responsibility that we have to our taxpayers and our community and our businesses. And to that point, the funding is a huge question. How do we fund it? Also, what does it look like on how we manage it? If we come together as one, who's in charge? Who's the unified? Is it a unified command? And how do we? Those are all things to be worked out another time, not today, but obviously things that we need to look at. Policies. When there's policy, who does it go to? Does it go to all three of us? And we have to agree on it. So working through all those, I'm not saying we can't do it. I think we absolutely can. But what it looks like could be very different from what we're used to, but not necessarily a bad thing. I think it could and should be something really positive, and those are all the steps along the way that we would have to figure out. And I guess looking at, can we replicate what other communities? I found you don't ever have to look, reinvent any wheel, that you can replicate what other communities are doing. And looking nationwide at communities maybe similar to our size and jurisdictions, and how have they done it, and what has worked, what hasn't worked, to help us do it even better by using those as a template. And the only pause I take on a study is that it's time again. And that frustration of things taking so long, it's like, oh, here we go, another study. And not saying they're not beneficial, but just that time factor. Can we do it efficiency? Can we look at the old study? Can we get to the point where we need the study? But I want things to move and move now.
But we did do it here successfully.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Anderson, you got anything?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First off, I want to say I'm so appreciative for all of you that are in the emergency services side of business and making it happen every day for our community. Second, I'm thrilled that all the individuals up here on the dais are echoing each other, and that we need to be providing the best emergency response and have the best outcomes for our community. So I like the direction we're all headed. In my opinion, politics can derail good, great ideas faster than anything else. So I hope that we all continue to head down this path. With that being said, I do have a couple questions and concerns as far as some clarifications. Like Councilmember Dewar, quite honestly, I can't recall ever hearing the term unrestricted automatic aid agreements before. So if I could just make sure I'm clearly understanding the difference between what I thought was unrestricted, an automatic aid agreement, and unrestricted automatic aid agreement.
Dale Way, Truckee Meadows Fire. Again, unrestricted automatic aid means anywhere. Whereas right now, our agreement with Reno is to very specific areas, right, which we had to plug into dispatching. And that is the linchpin to this. Chief Cochran alluded to it, right? The regional dispatch is one of the keys. In Southern Nevada, there's one PSAP. That's the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. And I would remind everyone here, too, as we move forward, there's 4 different agencies in Southern Nevada, over 80 fire stations, right, who have been doing this for 40 years, right? So it's not impossible. It's very possible, and it works seamlessly. As I said, I was a resident of Las Vegas. The closest station to my house was North Las Vegas. In fact, it's still the closest station to that house in that neighborhood, and will be for some years until Las Vegas Fire builds another fire station in that area. And so that's the unrestricted automatic aid. There's never a time where we say, we're not going. We're sending that closest unit right now. That's it.
All right, thank you. And along the same lines, as far as clarification, so today we heard about CAD, computer aided dispatch, hexagon, and then the term of shared dispatch. And I just want to ask that you'd also clarify between all of those, what are the differences, or are they all interchangeable?
Thank you, Reno Fire Chief Dave Cochran. So the CAD is the system. That's where you input the data, what the dispatchers are looking at, the screens are looking at. That's the physical system. You can have a shared system without having a shared dispatch. So we can all be operating off that shared system. And everybody you've heard from today, including Mr. Duplantis from REMSA, is going to be on that system. But if you still have a REMSA dispatch center and a Sparks dispatch center and a Reno dispatch center, and maybe the county has their own, or maybe they're with REMSA, you don't have a shared dispatch. You have separate dispatches working off a shared system. And the CAD is that, like I called it, a tool. It's a tool to bring us together. It will allow for a great leap forward in terms of sharing information more efficiently, more accurately, but it's still not the best, that gold level, that gold star level of a shared dispatch where one dispatcher can tap into any resource. You might be able to see them, but without that shared dispatch, and you need an agreement, obviously, between the jurisdictions to be able to say, I need these 4 resources, these are the 4 closest, I'm going to take them regardless of jurisdiction. I think to Commissioner Clark's point, nobody cares what words are on the side of the engine or the ambulance that shows up. They care that it gets there and they get what they need when they need it.
So along that same lines, just one last question for you. As I understand, we're not all operating on the same radio stations or radio systems, I should say. If it was a shared dispatch, that would integrate all of us to where we're all running the same system and communicating together. Is that correct?
That is the goal of the shared dispatch. One CAD system, so the dispatch system, one communication system, the radio system.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
You bet.
Ms. Vanderwell?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I also want to thank all of our first responders and the public for showing up today. I would like to thank the leadership of our 2 mayors and the commission chair and all of my colleagues. It's enlightening to see all of us here and working together. I pretty much echo a lot of what my colleagues have said. I do want to share, though, that I mostly agree with Councilwoman Anderson's outlooks on what our fire departments look like. I spent the summer in a shift in each one of our 6 stations in the city of Sparks. In the city of Sparks, because we have a lot of 1-year and 2-year firefighters. So we have a gap between being able to move our firefighters up and to have a well-trained fire department. So I think regionalization is a way where we're going to get those fill-ins until our fire departments mature. So with that, I pretty much echo everybody. I'm also going to agree with Councilwoman Dorr, because I will tell you, the years that it has taken to get regional dispatch is painful. And government is so great at doing studies and then sitting them on a shelf and then never doing what those studies have recommended. So I would just hope that this time things move more quickly. Thank you.
Mr. Evans.
Awesome. Well, you know, as blessed to be the last one of the 16 of us to speak today, I will try not to take too much of our time. But obviously, thank you to everyone being here. I think there's been a lot of thank yous already. I will add one more, just because I'm the last one. Shout out to the media in the back of the room for letting the public know about what we're talking about here. You know, obviously, there's a room full of people, but what we're talking about here will impact our entire community and not just the people in this room. So shout out to you guys. So on that, I'm definitely on a couple things. I'm excited that, you know, we're all here. I think we all sit on a lot of boards and committees. We do not always agree on things. I think all 16 of us that are present today are interested in taking a step. Maybe some others are looking to take a jump. But I think we're all looking forward. We are all, I think, at a spot together today of making some progress here. And it's exciting. I wrote out a whole bunch of stuff. I will not read it all, but I'll just kind of hit some of my some strong points on regionalization. You know, I think we've had to talk about improving response times. I forgot which chief it was, and I think Commissioner Clark too. People don't care what badge, what color the engine is. They just want help, and they want help soon. I think there's also a great opportunity, obviously saving tax dollars, resources and cost efficiency. I think there's also even just a legislative and policy support where we can come together as a team when we're talking to the state. You know, we are one unit. I think there's positive there as well. And I think also, you know, starting off with stronger mutual aid agreements is a great first step. And I think it was Councilman Rodriguez that mentioned it's a first step but not forever. So I think, I don't know, it's an exciting time here, so I'll stop.
Thank you. Just from my chair, first thing I think we have to do, we have to vote if we're going to actually pursue this. So I'm going to, and let me say it in this, I want to give some direction to our city manager, is that you get with our fire chiefs. There is low-hanging fruit we can do today. We found that out pretty easy. Let's work on that. The study part of it, you know, we can get to that, but let's keep this in mind. There's 116 days left in the legislature. We've already used 4 of them up. So there are 116 more to go. So let's get this thing done. Let's get it done quickly. Let's give our senators some direction as to what works. And hopefully then we all are speaking with one voice, as Councilman Abbott said, and that our governor hears us. You know, this is directly against one of his edicts about no new taxes. This is something that we think is good for our region, will improve outcomes. I mean, do we need 15 battalion chiefs? We'll probably have some efficiencies there. We definitely wouldn't need 3 fire chiefs. Sorry, guys, but you know, there are some efficiencies that come with this regionalization. So right now, as you heard me then, Dion, is that I want to see if that you will pursue that, and we'll call the working group whatever the heck you want to call it. But I would also suggest that you pull in at least one of our council members to be on there so you can get the political part of it and make sure that this doesn't devolve into a political issue, because that's where the failure's been in the past. If I remember my history, it was all about money. It was, one entity didn't like the other entity's money balancing act, and it didn't work out. So I think there's efficiencies there. So with that, in the interest of time, I'm going to ask the city of Sparks to formulate a motion.
Oh, I had another.
And I'm sorry, Mayor Lawson, if we could just do a few more comments, because I think that there may be some additional comments and questions, and then can we do that and then come back, or do you want to do that for Sparks?
I mean, I'm just thinking about moving forward here.
Yes, sir, I hear you.
This is the longest meeting I've ever sat in my life.
Come to the county commission and you will have a lot. So I just, To the mayor's point, and I appreciate that. I think that we do want to move forward. We've been sitting here for a while. I know that we're going to need restroom breaks here soon if we continue this discussion. But I really appreciate how you pointed out that the last time we had a hard time was money. But I think what the other issue was fair representation of making sure that that all of our bodies have a voice, and I think there needs to be some accountability if we're going to move this forward. So I'd like to see how our managers and how certainly the TM fire chief would help us with accountability, what that looks like, how we report out to our boards, or how we report out to a smaller board, or how we make sure that we understand that this is moving forward. We do understand that we only have so many days in the legislature to get this done, and I think that we need some recommendations on, I love the idea of having a council member. I don't know if it's too much political theater to have yet another regional body reviewing this, but I think that we need to consider that as far as making sure that we all feel comfortable having a seat at the table and that this is moving forward and whatever this is. And I think that's the difficult part for what I'm hearing from my board, and I don't want to speak for them, is that we haven't seen a BDR. There's an understanding that if there was a tax increase, it would fall on the Board of County Commissioners. And so I think that we need to understand, well, I'm not taking that on necessarily, but I think we need to understand the consequences of this, because I think our board is really proud of Truckee Meadows Fire District and what was stood up, the service, the staff. And so I think that is calling out the elephant in the room. Madam Mayor, I appreciate that you always do. That is where we are sitting. And I think that we need to make sure that, to Commissioner Garcia's point, that if we are looking at additional taxes, which we all know today, we have structural deficits in our budget, whether we are looking at fire or we're looking at providing you park services or we're looking at providing you business licensing or planning services, we are having issues keeping up with the demand of the growth because of depreciating property tax and the cap on property tax. So that is a big issue, and I think our governor should hear us loud and clear that there's a big issue on all the services that we provide in this region. So that's my direction. Are there any other county commissioners that want to speak up? Commissioner Garcia.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think when I was referring to the third-party study, it was in relation to consolidation, not regionalization. Those are two different things. I'm fully supportive of making moves today that support regional efforts, regionalization, interlocal agreements, MOUs, whatever that looks like. Consolidation is a different beast. And so if we can kind of tease out what we're talking about here, that would be helpful for me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Garcia. Commissioner Andriola, do you have anything else? Okay, and Commissioner Clark, anything else?
Thank you, Madam Chair.
And then Councilmember Ebar, I'll toss it back to Reno and then Sparks, and then hopefully we'll get somewhere here. Go ahead, Commissioner Clark.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think I want to reemphasize that was then and this is now. We've got a different opportunity to look at things differently, and times change and issues need to be addressed in a different fashion at this point in time. I'm very proud of Commissioner Garcia and her district. She exemplified what I was talking about earlier. In her district, we've got county, we've got 2 different cities, and her residents have to deal with that. I can guarantee if you ask 100 people where the line of demarcation is from the different jurisdictions, they don't know. That isn't their job to know. All they want to know is, if I need help, can I get help, and how fast can I get it? Commissioner Andriola brought up the cost of this. Councilperson Bybee brought up the cost of this. We need to look at that. I think that's an important consideration, but the regionalized dispatch should be moving at rapid speed to get that going, and the unrestricted auto aid, you know, I'm not going to call anybody out, but we've got a city council person thinking that we had automatic aid. So what do you think the citizens, if we're elected officials, we're not clear on what's taking place. What do you think the citizens are? The citizens just think, I need help, I'm going to call, somebody's going to come and help me. That's not happening, because when they're calling for help, there's a discussion of who's going to catch that ball, who's got it, who's going to run on this thing. So the people don't know that. Some of the elected officials don't know that. So I think regionalized dispatch needs to happen as fast as possible, and auto aid needs to happen as fast as possible. We don't know what's going to. I don't want to leave our citizens at the mercy of what might or might not happen at the state legislature. This is things that we can fix now, and they should be fixed as soon as possible. Lastly, I think that we've got the municipalities of Reno, Sparks, the county. I'd like to see some representation, if they're interested. The tribes need to be involved in this as well. We've got large pockets of land in the county that are represented by the tribes, and they should have a seat at the table as well. So just my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Clark. I'll now turn it over to the City of Reno for final comments.
All right, I'm going to have you weigh in, Councilwoman Ebert.
Yeah. Okay, I think it's on now. Councilmember Ebert. Oh, is it on now? Hello? Okay. Councilmember Ebert, for the record, I just also share Commissioner Marilou's concern about, what we're actually talking about today. I completely support having one dispatch. I think that just makes sense to everybody for a million reasons. I also support unrestricted mutual aid. The comments about 116 days left in the legislative session, that's fine. That doesn't mean that we need to cobble something together real quick to push something through that hasn't really been properly thought out and worked on and communicated to the community. Comments like that really make me nervous, because we've already had a divorce of services. I would like to have whatever we come up with be successful, and typically when things are rushed, that's not usually when they work out the best in my experience. So I just want to make it clear that we need to do it at our pace and not in 116 days, because that's just when it is. And I think that there's conflicting comments about, this mutual aid is beneficial, it'll save us money, it's going to be great. And then the next statement being, we might need to have another funding mechanism. So people are already paying towards fire. So if this is going to be beneficial and we're not going to need as many things and it's going to save money, it's very difficult for me to then accept the statement that we also need to have additional fees, taxes, whatever you want to call it, to fund this. So I just want to call that out. It makes me very leery when we have comments about having to rush through and get this done. So I just want to put that on the record. I support mutual aid 100%. I support whatever it is we need to do to support our chiefs and other first responders to get on a one dispatch system. It just absolutely makes sense. And again, always thank you to the firefighters for everything you do. I hope you guys take this as me being supportive of you, but I just want to make sure we do everything the right way and don't rush through anything. I want us to get it right and not go through another divorce later because we crammed it. So thank you.
Councilwoman Dillard.
Turn this up. Did you turn this up? Okay, good. I just want to say a final word for myself. There were a lot of comments and questions about why we parted ways, and certainly money played a role. But on top of the money was really the issue of governance. And my understanding is that bodies didn't feel like they had appropriate representation on how to run the agency. And when that happens, People get disaffected, they feel disappointed, and they don't want to work together anymore. I was mentioning earlier to Senator Daley that in the last 20 years, the only joint powers authority agreement that I know that we did at the legislature was for the flood project. The flood project, like the previous fire consolidation or coordination, was a coordinating committee. It didn't have the authority to be an agency, to hire people, to issue bonds, to do all the things that they needed to do. In order to do that, the bill was relatively small, but there was a 75-page agreement that went along with that laid out all these details. How would you be governed? How would you come together? How would you bring resources together? What had already been spent? What could be spent? What was an appropriate way to move forward? And I want to thank several of the members here are on the Truckee River Flood Project, and we're working under that agreement. It was decided at that time, or many ways to govern an organization. It was decided to come up with a senatorial model, 2 from each jurisdiction. Whether we follow that or something else, the perception is it has to feel fair, and the people have to feel like they have representation. Otherwise, ultimately, they're going to be dissatisfied. So I just want to make sure, while we're talking money, that we put as much intellectual focus on how we govern, how we work together, how we have appropriate representation. So I think it's almost 19 of us don't have to be involved in those decisions. We have many, many regional boards today, and some of them deal with a lot of money. I see our director for Tumwa here. I'm chair of that board. There's a lot of money involved. RTC, there's a lot of money involved. This is going to be one of the boards. There's a lot of money involved, a lot of equipment, a lot of people. In fact, we know at Reno, it's our largest expenditure with police, public safety. So we know there's a lot of money, and I just want to encourage us to think about appropriate representation in moving forward, and just keep that top of mind while all of you are working on this. Let's make sure we address one of the flaws that was before, and let's not continue that issue. So thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Before I make a motion, I'm going to go down here. Anything, Kathleen Taylor?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I guess I just want to say quickly, I don't think this is the final step or the final, we're saying regionalize or go do taxes or raise this or anything like that. I don't think we're there yet. I think there's a lot of research and we need to get into the details. One of the things that scares me, it took, and maybe it was coincidence, maybe it wasn't, but there were 2 major natural disasters out of our region that got us here today. That shouldn't have to happen again. So while we're here and while we have the resources, I'm confident in saying go explore what the regional model looks like. I'm not saying I'm ready to make a regional model, but we're all here today to move forward. And I think it is our duty to our residents when we're all saying public safety, number 1, go see what it looks like, get a team together, bring it back, and then we'll take a look at it. I don't see any harm in that. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Councilwoman Anderson? Councilman Martinez? Can you hear me? Is this on? Yeah, it is. Okay. All right, just wanted to make sure. How would you like to do this? I did want to say one thing. I think obviously the conversation is not over. One of the things that I really, really wanted to see today, but I know that this has been a very long meeting and Mayor Lawson is having a tough time with that one. He's just not built. And I think these are 2 critical partners, is Tumwa and NV Energy. I will have both of you in the next conversation because that should have happened today. I want to know exactly about water services, resources, what those look like. I think the public wants to know. We as a body need to know. Because I think, again, we assume that when we turn on those hoses, there's going to be water. And I've even heard reports that they can exhaust our water system in one neighborhood. So I want answers to those questions. I want answers to the questions that we're going to see severe outages in this region whenever, a lot of us were like, wait a minute, the power is going out over here, but here's the fire over here. So we need to be better prepared about how we're messaging to the public and also what that looks like for the responsibility of NV Energy, Tumwa, all of our other partners. We have other partners that are here today. I want to thank all of you from the bottom of my heart and all of us up here. We appreciate your time because I think Not I think, I know, we need to hear those presentations from our other partners that we couldn't get to today. That's Animal Services, RSCVA, they do a lot of the sheltering whenever we have fires. There are just so many different partners in the room today, but we need to get to those as well, because people need to have those answers. So I wanted to let everyone know, I can't remember who said it, but this is not the end of the discussion, but we need to continue to have these discussions so the public knows about the transparency of what each role is for each stakeholder. Okay, so I wanted to, because everyone's asking me about water, so.
I agree. I love that we're having this discussion, and I think that we have seen regional approaches work really well in this community. And we stood up a homeless center and are now a national model. So we have seen it happen very recently in the last 4 years. So Mayor Lawson, are there any other City of Sparks folks that want to talk? And then I think staff had prepared a motion, and I don't know if that can be popped up on the screen as well while you're getting the last speakers.
Question. I'm sorry. Interim Chief Way, I have a clarifying question. So can you, and I know we have probably beat to death this unrestricted mutual aid, but you came out of Las Vegas, so I guess what my question is, how it works down in Las Vegas, are those 3 or 4 man crew down there?
Right now, the Las Vegas Valley has all 4-person crews.
Okay.
Mr. Anderson, Mr. Abbott, Rodriguez, Joe?
Thank you, Mayor. I do know that the cost stuff can be kind of concerning for everyone, and that is something we do need to definitely be looking at. But I also want to say, I don't know how much it costs for a person's life is. I don't know what that dollar number is. So I just hope that we can, yes, understand the fiscal responsibility that we have, but I also want us to challenge us to look at this as an investment into our future. I mean, what we could do here, all of us, can really set the tempo for decades into the future of what this fire service will look like. So I just want to challenge us to, look at that. And I mean, we're taking a great step forward. I don't want to lose momentum on this at all. So I would like to hopefully see, whatever this motion may be, that we look at everything. What does regionalization look like? What does consolidation look like? Can we maybe dog-ear BDR that if we need it, or if we don't? If we could do this at a local level, fantastic. Chief Way, how many fire engines and manpower do you have? Sparks, how many do we have? Can we close some of these stations? Can we work together? I mean, we're doing amazing stuff right now. So I just want to challenge us to look at every possible option moving forward, and then set a timeline. This gives staff and the public, what are we doing next, and when are we doing that next? So I would just hope that we see that, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, well, I'm hearing both mayors want to do a motion, so I'll throw it over.
Mr.
Can I just say-
Anderson has it right in front of him, if you
okay.
want him.
Before we jump into that, I want to address one thing, and it's so hard to say what is fact these days when it comes to reporting, so I apologize. It's just, that's the nature that we're living in these days. But I was reading this morning, and to your point, because a lot of people have brought up cost up here. In the LA fire, they lost 11,000 homes. The aftermath is about $250 billion. $250 billion, right? Do you know what that comes to? It's about $22 million per home. So when we talk about cost and what this looks like, I want everyone to be reminded that if we don't invest in the safety, in our infrastructure, these types of things, we are going to pay for it on the back end. Don't kid yourself. So when you talk about being good fiscal stewards, it's upfront and being proactive instead of reactive, because in government we're so good at being reactive. But we have an opportunity to be proactive here, and I've heard it from all of you today. So I really appreciate the leadership. It's impressive. So thank you. But I wanted to put that in there because I had no idea that was the cost, $250 billion that catastrophic event has caused. And not to mention, when you think of that actually impacts the entire country because their economy is so large. So anyway, it just reminds me, it's such a good reminder that we talk about what it costs, but what really is the damaging effects if you don't invest in those things.
And Madam Mayor, the effect on housing, if you can't get fire insurance, which we're hearing in our community in North and Ferdi.
We didn't even
down
talk
south.
about that.
Well, someone mentioned it, but the point is the overflow effects on even just buying a house.
Yeah.
I mean,
I just got a cancellation notice.
okay. Now what?
I sure did.
Right?
So I think a lot of people are going to experience it. That's why we have to continue to have these conversations.
And Madam Clerk, I'm assuming every jurisdiction needs to do their own motion, correct?
I believe that's
think that's
correct.
okay.
We might check with legal.
Okay, yes,
Right,
and I'm
yes.
hearing DA Edwards, yes. Okay, so we'll start with the City of Sparks, and
Mr. Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll make the motion to direct the city managers, county manager, Truckee Meadows Fire Protection Chief to work together to gather additional information to assess needs, costs, and impacts to help guide the process of determining options for enhanced regional fire options.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
thank you very much. We'll now move to the City of Reno.
Okay,
Madam
thank you.
Chair, I have
Yes.
a question. So the motion does not include, as I read it, does not include the fire chiefs for Reno and Sparks. Is that intentional, or do you want to include them? And if so, would the movement and the seconder agree to that?
I heard plural.
So let's add those in. Can you revise your motion, Mr. Anderson? And will you, what do you call, yield?
Yes, sir. So I'm not sure, do you want me to do the whole motion over again, or?
In my view, you don't need to. I think you could just state
Amendment.
that is clarified, and then I would say Sparks should revote on it.
Okay.
So let me, just one more clarification, then can we just amend that to say that it's people as needed by the manager's determination? You may want more than just fire chiefs.
CFO.
You could do that. I think if you just include that group so that it's defined, I think they can then use their discretion to bring in who they want or need.
Mr. Mayor, may I make
Please.
an amendment to the motion?
Yes.
I would like to amend the motion to include the fire chiefs as well as up to the manager's discretion on who else they would like to include.
Second.
Did you have to say fire chief for there? Reno and Sparks? Okay.
I think it's clear now.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I do have a follow-up to this, or a question on this motion. Are we able to look at, or I don't want to ruin open meeting law, but like, are we able to look at setting a timeline for this to really hold ourselves accountable to the public on this?
Do we need a timeline? I mean, I think we all understand there's an urgency here. And we also have identified a lot of low-hanging fruit that actually can be accomplished in weeks, not months.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess.
Mayor Lawson, Dion Loudon, City Manager of Sparks, for the record. Visiting with my colleagues, what we would propose is perhaps 30 days for us to coalesce around this and report back to the group with potential options.
Did he go on
See that
this
timeframe
motion?
playing out and the direction we would go.
So then, do we need to amend our motion? I think that's up to you guys
I
anyways.
think we have, from our chair, we have enough clarity to
Thank
move
you.
forward based on discussion.
Okay, so I've got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
And the City of Reno.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Maybe you can't hear me. There you go.
Do you want a motion?
I don't know, Do we have one from the city of Reno that you want particularly?
We're going to go with this, I think.
Oh, we're going to go with this?
Yeah. May I make that
Okay,
motion?
no, hold on one second. Okay. Here's what I want to do. In our motion to the city of Reno, one of the things that I'm going to put in there is I want emergency management embedded in our agendas. I want them part of our agendas at the city of Reno moving forward, and particularly sort of the after events and what those look like. Because I heard them say that, oh, you can come on over, you can do this, you can do that. I think they're absolutely necessary to understand what the challenges are in the region, so I would encourage everyone else to make sure that they are embedded in their agendas moving forward. That will help tremendously, and I think it's going to help them get the things that they want quickly. And so the other thing I'd like to do is make a motion to have, to implement unrestricted auto aid from the city of Reno. And I would like to direct city managers, county managers, Truckee Meadows Fire Protection Chief, and all the other regional chiefs, Chief Concurrent, the fire chief from City of Sparks, to all work together, any other stakeholders, to gather additional information, assess needs, costs, impacts to help guide the process of determining options for enhanced regional fire.
Second?
All right, so I have a motion, I have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those,
I have a question.
okay, go right ahead. Councilwoman Anderson.
Can you repeat the piece about implementing immediate, automatic, unrestricted aid? I want to know what that looks like before I vote on this.
Well, if you want, I think we should follow exactly what currently Sparks does and Truckee Meadows does. Do you want to get up and speak to that? What that looks like?
I think I need to understand the impacts of that to the city of Reno first before I vote on this.
Okay.
I could touch.
Go right ahead.
What I hear is that this group wants unrestricted automatic aid. To have that, you have to be on the same system. We had one fire agency move off of the Tiburon system, and we lost all visibility of where those resources were. So that created a lot of the, I think, the hesitation on that automatic aid unrestricted agreement. So I think if you're for that, you can't, you have to be opposed to any of the fire agencies moving off of a common-based system where they all have access. And the other is, if you want the quickest available resource, dispatch the quickest available appropriate resource, then I think we need to look at not supporting an agreement that requires an unnecessary transfer of calls and a delay in that process.
Yeah.
So
I can't tell, is Chief Cochran right there?
he is.
I can't see you over there, sorry.
Sorry, I was behind the podium.
I think we feel strongly about providing the best possible service.
We do.
So what does that look like? What's the problem?
I think what Chief White was getting at was the two different systems that we're on. So there is not unrestricted automatic aid in Sparks and TM right now because of the different systems, same challenge we have. I think the point he was making is we can get there by coming together on that shared system. And I agree 100% with your comment about providing the best service and a path forward to get there. But I think there just needs to be a recognition that it's not something where we just, by agreement, can do it. We're doing extensive automatic aid right now in the areas where our jurisdictions overlap. And we built that into dispatch, but it is clunky, and sometimes it results in a duplication of efforts. The shared system eliminates that, those pain points, those information pain points, and the transfers back and forth, because we literally have to take the call at 911, transfer it to a different system, which they may have to transfer it back. Every time you do that, you potentially lose information.
And Chief, this will happen in September?
The CAD system will allow for
Isn't that the shared system?
Yeah. Yes, that will allow.
So I don't know the word immediate. I didn't hear that word in her motion to Councilmember Anderson. I think it's when we have this shared system, which is supposed to be this fall. Is that right? Is that when it could?
September, the target date, if it hasn't slipped, is September of this year, yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So
I'm just saying that we can do that now. If we can move to a shared system now, but in all honesty, that's a lot of work, and you're talking about moving twice. You're moving now and then moving
Well,
again.
can we
when
just
have the
plan to
ECAD
move
system.
when you have your shared system? I think that was your intent, Mayor.
Yeah, that is the goal, absolutely.
I just wanted clarification because there are actual impacts here to our city, so I just wanted to make sure that we understood what we were voting on.
Well, my goal is just to make sure that we are doing the best that we possibly can for every single resident in our region, period. Whatever that looks like.
Could you just do
and,
me
you
a
know,
favor
the
and
hard
repeat
part
your
for me, it's
motion?
not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. That's where we're at now with these fires. It is frightening, beyond frightening. So I get my own PTSD when we're, pushing things off or we're moving at government speeds. People are sick of that. They don't want to see that anymore. They're tired of it. Go read any social media or national media piece. They're over that. So if that's not the program that we're all on, I guarantee you many of you will not be sitting in your seats as you move forward in the next election. So I just want to make it abundantly clear. It might be a lot of work. It might take time, but we got to do it, and we got to do it now.
Madam Mayor, my concern was that we just weren't as narrow in our motion as we were getting. I think that exploring all options for all aid and all improved services is necessary. I just felt like our motion was too narrow compared to the two other municipalities.
And I guess I have a hard time when I know other jurisdictions are doing it. Why aren't we? Because we've got to provide the best service. If we really mean what we say, then that matters.
And that's why this shared dispatch system is such a huge opportunity for us.
It sure is.
So I just wanted to make sure we were clear.
Yeah, just to be clear, the other jurisdictions are not doing it because they suffer from the same handicap that we do. That is the different systems, different CADs, different communications. So whatever enhanced auto aid is, it's not being done right now.
Well, they're saying there's no boundaries between the two. So why are they saying that Reno still has these boundaries?
We have programmed that into our dispatch to cross boundaries.
Okay.
So we are doing that.
Well, could we just say, with the goal of achieving unrestricted auto aid in conjunction with the regional CAD system?
Are you asking her to make the
No,
motion?
I'm comfortable with this motion.
Yes, okay. I already made the motion. We had a motion and a second. We had discussion. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you very much. We'll now move to the Washoe County Board of County Commissioners and the Truckee Meadows Fire District Board. And I am looking to see if anyone, Commissioner Garcia looks like she wants to make the motion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to direct city managers, county managers, all of the fire chiefs to work together to gather additional information as stated in the provided motion.
Thank you very much. Looking for a second.
May I just make a comment for consideration? I'll
Will
do
you
the
make the second first?
I'll do
Thank
the
you.
second. I know we've all been talking about unrestricted mutual aid, and I know that we have a very clear understanding of the distinction, and some of the confusion hopefully has been cleared up. But I do think including a direction for looking at a policy that we could put into place is very helpful. And so I don't want to convolute your motion, Commissioner Garcia, but I do think looking at that, because it's my understanding, and I made that in the very beginning of this discussion, that it's my understanding that that is something we can do right away. And so I think looking at that policy, including that would be helpful. Not to exclude any other opportunities, to Councilwoman Anderson's point for clarification on that, but I do think that it's important, so.
Unrestricted auto aid.
That's correct, unrestricted auto aid. Sorry, I meant, in my head, I said unrestricted auto aid. In my mouth, I said unrestricted. So for clarification, I meant unrestricted auto aid, just for that to be looked at and that policy to be considered.
And I think that is what Reno, That's the motion that Reno put together too.
I
so-
heard that, but
Yes.
I didn't.
No, that's great. I think Commissioner Garcia, okay. We see that the motion is accepting that, and are you accepting it
I am.
for your second?
I am.
Okay, any questions on the motion from the board? I'm not seeing any. All right, those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, please say nay. And that passes unanimously. Okay, thank you, everyone. We're moving at the speed of government here. We'll now move to...
Maybe a little faster.
Exactly. We'll now move to item C. This is Commissioner, Council Member, Manager, Chief announcements, reports, and updates to include requests for information or topics for future agendas. I look to the Truckee Meadows Fire Board and the Board of County Commissioners. Do folks have announcements, or Commissioner Clark?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to put it on the record that we're actually getting out of here early for a county commission meeting, so we're quite proud of that. For those of you who are from other jurisdictions, this is a walk in the park for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Commissioner Garcia, do you have anything? Okay. And Manager Brown or Chief Way, do y'all have anything? No. Okay. City of Reno.
Madam Mayor?
Oh,
Yep.
whoa.
I do have a comment. I think the point was brought up that our managers are going to try to get something to us in 30 days-ish, if it's 40, okay. But the point of it is we probably need to reconvene to hear that information and maybe give some additional direction, especially given the legislative session. So just if we could think about that and already be working on our next meeting. Okay, so I just want to make sure that was on the comments and next agenda.
Yeah, I was also, is this thing on?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, also wanted to reconvene to go through this, and maybe next steps are, we go through the process of getting everybody on one system. If there's any hiccups, that we just kind of work through that and make that, next steps for the agenda, because it sounds like that's the first thing that we have to do to make this happen. But, yeah, is it?
Okay. And the City of Sparks?
No, I think we're talking about.
Do y'all have anything?
Question, comments? Good.
Okay, thank you. We'll now move into our final public comment. This item is for public comment on any action item or any general public comment. And does the City of Reno agree to open public comment?
Yes.
And does the City of Sparks agree? Yes, thank you. Madam Clerk.
First up, we have Mark Newman.
Good afternoon, almost afternoon. Good morning, everybody. And go with Commissioner Clark. Yes, I have been here till 7 o'clock. I think one night, 9 o'clock, started these meetings. My thing is Commissioner, or Mayor Sheevy brought up the question with EMS. Do we have an existing plan? I will ask any one of you, have you seen a map of how to evacuate your area? That was a question I wanted to ask, because I get the same question asked from a number of different other people throughout the county, is where do I go? And when you guys ask, well, how come they were going towards a fire? They didn't know which way to go, so they just made a right instead of a left, and they ended up going into the fire. So I think if you're going to do anything with EMS, it should be to make sure everybody in their neighborhoods know which way to evacuate. And then on the other thing, part of this whole entire fire action thing, this whole thing, I've been a resident of Washoe County over 60 years. Fire departments used to get along real good. And you sat up there, and not you personally, but the people that were in charge, stepped on somebody's toes and somebody got mad. Money here, let's grab there, this is ours, this is theirs, and it all went south. So if you guys do this and make it right again, make sure that you get it put in. That's 2 or 3 people down the road to get elected doesn't get their toes stepped on and it all goes south again. And if it has to go through the Nevada legislature, you guys are already late, because our assembly and senators only get to write so many bills, and they've probably already written all of them that they can for this year. So thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Shirley Fulkins Roberts.
Hello, Shirley Fulkins Roberts, the chair of REMSA's board.
for the record, and I'll make this quick. I just wanted to finish Barry Duplantis' remarks since he was cut off. So I not only represent the exceptional REMSA team, but also the Board of Directors, which is composed of all 3 hospital systems. And I want to thank you on behalf of the board for being here today, coming together and being so passionate for our community, as well as our first responders who saved so many of our homes in the Davis fire. It's very close to my home. Just wanted to finish by saying again that REMSA demonstrated 40 years of regionalization as emergency medical response, and it's been a very good model. We are excited and supportive of the discussions to evaluate the regional fire system. And as a partner, we look forward to being part of that with our passionate policymakers and excellent first responding systems. And we look forward to those discussions. We look forward to standing up, we look forward to standing with these groups as they consider standing up regional fire services alongside them as a partner. Thank you.
Thank you.
There's nobody else signed in.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Well, I will adjourn the Washoe County Commission and the Board of Fire Commissioners, and I look to the City of Reno. Are you adjourning?
Yes, we're adjourning.
Okay, and the City of Sparks?
We're not staying inside.
Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for your time.
I always want to know if